Subscribe to the MTL World at Malworld 1 YouTube channel. Novel, Night Without Borders. Chapter 621, Profound and Mysterious, 2 chapters combined. Author, Chen Dong. Translator, Shadow Knight AK. Editor, Shadow Knight AK. So this is the man who's good for nothing else but being handsome. Zuo Qing's mind drifted back to her initial assessment of that arrogant figure. She was momentarily dazed. Now, she had been utterly crushed. Her entire body throbbed with excruciating pain, as if she'd been trampled by a giant bear. A chunk of her shoulder-length hair had been sliced off, her fair face was stained with blood, and dozens of bones and tendons across her body were broken. Qi Lin, clad in black, fared the worst. His body was riddled with blood-soaked holes that pierced straight through, and he lay motionless on the ground, completely unconscious. Qin Ming, worried he might have crossed a line, approached to check his condition. With a considerate touch, he used his adhesive force to mend Qi Lin's shattered skull. Qi Lin had been on Qin Ming's hit list from the very beginning, one of the individuals he most wanted to deal with harshly. This was because Qi Lin's subordinate, the overaged Grandmaster Zhou Shan, had severely injured Li Qingyu multiple times under Qi Lin's orders, even harboring inappropriate intentions toward her. Qi Lin himself had never been interested in women, but his ideological and moral conflict with Lu Xunjun had somehow involved Li Qingyu. For this reason, he had nearly been crippled by Qin Ming. Wang Pan slumped onto the ground, gasping for breath, his body feeling as though it were being torn apart. Yun Wangshu and Zheng Gui, covered in blood, staggered forward. Behind them, 2 lines of bloody footprints trailed across the ground. Qin Ming surveyed the surroundings and murmured, "I originally came here intending to live off a woman's support, but you wouldn't let me. You even bullied the person I've chosen to align with, so, I suppose I'll just have to step in and handle things myself." The saints who had not yet fainted all stumbled, nearly collapsing from the shock. The aloof Wang Pan fell silent. Yun Wangshu's eyes shimmered as she gazed at the man on the primordial gold bridge. Zuo Qing grumbled inwardly, "If I'd known this would happen, what harm would there have been in letting you live off me?" Even Yun Wangshu, who always admires the strong, could have been included in the arrangement. Zheng Gui, his body covered in cracks, felt a dull ache in his chest and thought, "Arrogant fool. Just wait until my uncle arrives from afar. Let's see how you'll keep acting so high and mighty. You'll be begging for mercy and bowing low to offer a toast of submission." Near the exit of the ruins, the atmosphere had already descended into a chaotic uproar. Qin Ming stood on the primordial gold bridge, his hands clasped behind his back as he floated against the night sky. He spoke calmly, "My heart is placed beyond the mortal world, tending to drifting clouds. I have no desire to compete with the short-lived and the long-lived of the human realm." Qi Lin awoke, and upon hearing these words, a surge of stagnant qi rushed up from his heart. He coughed up a large mouthful of blood and fainted again. Zuo Qing felt a tightness in her chest and almost blurted out, "You're the one running amok here. How can you have the nerve to say something so pretentious?" Wang Pan remained silent, his gaze dark. "I really want to beat him up." Yun Wangshu, however, looked on with sparkling eyes, her admiration for him deepening once more. Zheng Gui turned his head and caught a glimpse of her expression. Crack. The already fractured tortoise shell on his back spider-webbed further, and his injuries immediately worsened. "I need to find the great sage, and fast," he screamed inwardly. Many who heard Qin Ming's words felt a complex mix of emotions and began to whisper amongst themselves. The ancient furnace sighed, "The younger generation of Night Prefecture is truly pushing the older one aside. Each new wave is even more arrogant than the last." Only Li Qingyu smiled, her gaze soft and fixed on that single figure. Qin Ming approached, his killing aura completely gone, his expression gentle. He took her slender hand, ready to venture deeper into the Liang Shuangshu ruins. "Are you hurt?" Li Qingyu asked, looking him over closely. Qin Ming shook his head. "How could I be?" Instead, he asked with concern, "Some grandmasters charged this way earlier. Are you all right?" While Qin Ming had been contending with the saints, their followers had tried to capture Li Qingyu, only to be repelled. Without Qin Ming even needing to intervene through resonance, Li Qingyu had unleashed the humanoid chaos force enveloping her, nearly crushing the 2 grandmasters to death. "The mystical substances you left behind are too formidable," Li Qingyu explained. "I might have crossed a line. As long as you were unharmed," Qin Ming replied. Nearby, many who witnessed this scene were secretly grumbling, "You're actually asking each other if you're okay. Heaven above, quickly take this monster away." Wang Pan and Zheng Gui could hardly bear it. Zuo Qing and Yun Wangshu also felt a twinge of sourness. The sweetness between these two was simply too much, it was positively blinding. Qin Ming, with Li Qingyu by his side, descended to the ground to check on those who were severely injured. Li Qingyu's passive counterattacks had indeed left some people in a truly gruesome state. There were broken arms, missing legs, and even severed heads and bodies torn asunder. Fortunately, these victims were grandmasters, possessing tenacious vitality. Qinming set about stitching and patching them up, deeming the injuries manageable and not a violation of the rules. Look quickly. Immortal Maiden Li is as kind as she is beautiful. Even the madman by her side has been influenced and is now saving people. They truly are a match made in heaven. In the ruins, some of the heavily injured who heard the distant chatter felt their sanity slipping. Did these people really not know what they were saying? Who was responsible for the injuries they had suffered? This was truly a case of laying down the butcher's knife to immediately become a Buddha, radiating divine light. Wang Pan, standing at a distance, asked, "May I ask for your name, fellow Taoist?" Qinming replied, "Zhengguang." "A good name," Yun Wengshu remarked. Qinming added, "Some also call me Grandmaster Zishan, Supreme Benevolence. A name that truly fits." Among the spectators, someone chimed in, "It's true. After all, we saw him personally tending to everyone's wounds. He really does have a kind heart. What a load of bullshit. You're all just suck-ups." A group of severely injured victims roared inwardly. "He's only helping because he doesn't want my brains to leak out and for me to die right here. He's just doing some last-moment patching." Moreover, some who had sustained only minor injuries groaned in pain. They had actually been hit while down by him. The main reason was that Qinming had done his homework beforehand, thoroughly assessing the condition of the saint's followers. More importantly, he could resonate with their thoughts, knowing exactly who harbored hostility toward him and Li Qingyu. Therefore, when he encountered those who had escaped severe punishment, he used his chaos force to rearrange them while pretending to check their pulses. I've never seen anyone hold a grudge like this. A grandmaster trembled in fear, seething with rage, but dared not speak a word of protest. Ancient Furnace remarked, "You won't need 100 years to realize it, you will soon be grateful for having experienced this battle. It will add a layer of brilliant luster to your lives." Nearby, some people who heard this were left speechless. Were it not for the fact that this senior furnace had such an immense background, they would have truly wanted to spit right in its face. Among the saints, the gloom on Lu Xunjun's face completely vanished, replaced by a strange new emotion, a faint smile. Although he, too, had been defeated, he stood apart from the other four top-tier saints. He had faced Zhengguang alone. In contrast, Qi Lin, Wang Pan, Zuo Qing, and Yun Wengshu had been severely wounded even after joining forces. At this moment, Li Qingyu's 12 followers all wore complicated expressions. They had gained much from this trip, but they also felt as if they had missed a chance to get closer to a peerless young expert. Someone in the group breathed heavily and asked, "You got it all recorded, right? High definition, unedited. We can sell it for a fortune." Only after mentioning this did their hearts finally settle. This trip had indeed been a massive success. Crucially, the paid followers of Wang Pan, Qi Lin, and Yun Wengshu had all been indiscriminately attacked by that madman. They were now broken and beaten, rolling on the ground like squashed gourds, their memory crystals shattered. This is so infuriating. I paid a fortune to get in, only to end up getting beaten up. I've never been such a sucker. I paid a fortune just to get beaten up. For a moment there, I thought I was going to die. On the battlefield, the paying spectators wept bitterly, filled with regret. For them, this was a true disaster. With the madman still delivering, finishing blows, nearby, they didn't even dare to voice their complaints aloud. Even Li Qingyu's 12 followers watched with pounding hearts, terrified that they, too, might be subjected to a savage beating. After all, they had completely severed ties with the other party. Fortunately, the madman was relatively considerate. Out of respect for the heavy price they had paid, he didn't come after them. The group of 12 gradually relaxed, finding the mood light enough to critique the footage they had recorded. Look. In this clip, the mysterious madman's fist pierces the night veil, hurtling toward immortal maiden Yun Wengshu. It almost became a chest-bursting punch. Hiss. It grazed her. This is a legendary moment. I bet plenty of people would pay a fortune for it. This angle is too brutal. Qi Lin is coughing up blood, his face twisted in agony. He looks absolutely hideous. Can we even sell this? These scenes aren't exactly elegant or beautiful. They're more likely to draw the cold, judging glares of the saints after the fact. If you're afraid, just transfer your memory crystals to me. I'll buy them all out. Sigh, having a peak-level Earth Immortal in the family really gives you a lot of confidence. All 12 of them were people of some standing, and they were currently holding a private discussion. Meanwhile, near the exit of the ruins, a chorus of curses suddenly erupted. My memory crystal. It didn't record any of those precious scenes. Ah, how could this happen? This is a nightmare. Damn it all. Who interfered with this? Many people's eyes turned red with fury, their tempers flaring. Numerous others were stamping their feet in frustration. Those precious battle scenes were priceless, they would only grow more valuable 50 or 100 years from now. After all, Lu Xunjun and Wang Pan were already famous. As long as they lived, their future status would only soar. These recordings would clearly document their journey to the top. Why did this happen? The memory crystal is completely blank. That's incredibly underhanded. We've missed out on a fortune today. Inside the ruins, among Li Qingyu's 12 followers, the great-grandson of an Earth Immortal spoke up. The interference source we placed at the entrance should ensure that those outside can't use memory crystals to record, right? Could it leak and provoke public outrage? It's not a big deal. Some of the teams that spent A gold to enter have openly set up similar measures. If anyone wants to investigate, they can go check them. Without a doubt, these were all precautions they had taken in advance to monopolize the recording of the battle scenes on memory crystals. My biggest concern is drawing the wrath of the saints. After all, the memory crystals contained nothing but damaging footage of their own crushing defeat. For the saints, there were no glorious moments to be found. Everyone, if you look at it from another angle, the problem isn't that big. Don't sell the memory crystals to ordinary cultivators, instead, give them directly to the saints as a gesture of sincerity. I doubt they'll refuse to accept them for free. If we handle it well, it means we've helped them clean up their embarrassing footage, a win-win situation. When the 12 followers saw Qin Ming glancing their way, their hearts began to race. This fierce man wouldn't attack his own people when he's in a rage, would he? One of them hastily sent a secret telepathic transmission. Immortal Maiden Li, we've recorded some of the most spectacular battle scenes. If we gain anything from them, you'll get a share. Hearing this, Qin Ming nodded and stopped in his tracks, refraining from walking toward them. Instead, he and Li Qingyu walked together to meet the saints face to face for a cordial and friendly exchange. Regardless of their inner thoughts, everyone maintained a polite facade, appearing to be deep in pleasant conversation. Li Qingyu took the initiative to mention that she still had some golden flame flowers and moon god flowers left over, which she could give to Wang Pan, Zuo Qing, Yun Wangshu, and the others. Immortal Maiden Li is truly generous, the usually aloof Wang Pan couldn't help but smile. He desperately needed those two kinds of heavenly treasures. Of course, he wouldn't just take them, that was out of the question. With that madman Qin Ming watching like a tiger ready to pounce, who would dare freeload? An equivalent exchange was a must. In fact, they might even need to offer a premium price to acquire them. Qin Ming felt his smile was bright and welcoming. Why did some people see him as a ferocious beast? Yun Wangshu's eyes sparkled as she said, Sister Qingyu, I still have some spirit replenishing soup. I'll send it over to you later. Even Qi Lin, who was most severely injured, dragged his exhausted body over, offering to exchange the moon god flower. From a distance, Qin Ming and Li Qingyu seemed to be on harmonious terms with the other saints, the atmosphere amicable, it appeared they had reached a consensus. Qin Ming said, deep within the Liang Shuangshu ruins, there are two mysterious springs. There's no need for everyone to rush off, Qingyu couldn't possibly claim all the fortune there for herself. Zuo Qing's expression shifted. What is this guy talking about? After he and Li Qingyu bathe, he'll let them use the leftover water. Yun Wangshu also showed a strange look. The saint water accumulated there did indeed contain mystical substances that the two of them couldn't possibly absorb completely. Zheng Gui stepped forward and said, I can go too, right? I'll go with Wangshu. You can get in line behind the three-headed dog, Qi Lin retorted. Of course, he added a reasonable justification, can't you see it's more injured than you are? Zheng Gui was so infuriated that another crack appeared in his tortoise shell. Qi Lin, he declared, once I've recovered, I'll come calling to spar with you properly. Qin Ming held Li Qingyu's slender hand as they ascended back into the night sky, treading upon the primordial gold bridge and heading straight for the depths of the ruins. From the horizon's edge, his leisurely voice drifted back, all my life, I have only ever loved the tranquility of forests and springs, with no desire to test my blade against the world. Lu Xunjun sighed in exasperation. This man is so formidable, yet so utterly nonchalant. But something feels wrong. He soon realized what it was. This guy was walking the very path that used to be his, leaving him with nowhere to go. Moments like this, commanding the attention of the masses, had always belonged to him. Qi Lin seethed with indignation. The madman is leaving, yet he still has to show off like this. How utterly infuriating. Unfortunately, he was no match for Qin Ming. At this moment, he was naturally the one harboring the deepest resentment. After all, he had been beaten the worst. He truly wished a saint with the potential of a Dao Venerable would emerge from the Tushita Palace's jurisdiction and subdue this villain in public. Yun Wangshu, meanwhile, stared blankly at their receding figures, lost in thought. Zheng Gui seethed with silent rage, and his tortoise shell cracked again with a sharp snap. Deep within the Liang Shuangshu ruins, smoke and mist drifted in ethereal swirls, a scene so dreamlike it seemed unreal. White fog and immortal light rose in unison, reflecting off the shimmering water in a display of breathtaking, almost otherworldly beauty. The so-called Shuangshu, the twin ruins, actually corresponded to a pair of springs. Legend had it that this place was once the bathing grounds of the heavenly gods. But after it fell into ruin and the most powerful mystical substances were depleted, only its afterglow remained. Even so, this was more than enough for those in the Grandmaster realm. The spring water here, infused with trace amounts of rare minerals, could still reshape one's innate talent and unlock hidden potential. Ahead, the ground was paved with jade marrow that gleamed with a brilliant luster. The spring water overflowed, creating a hazy, ethereal atmosphere. Qinming and Li Qingyu arrived, gazing in awe at the miraculous scene before them. There was no soil, yet lingzi mushrooms and orchids grew directly from the jade marrow, their roots taking hold. A delicate fragrance lingered in the air, entwined with the swirling mists. Two spring pools rested upon the jade marrow rock platform, nestled closely together. The spring water continuously overflowed, yet the rare and mysterious substance gathered without dispersing, condensing within the twin pools. The pools were small in scale, each large enough to accommodate only one or two people. A seven-colored mist perpetually shrouded the area, while starlight-like radiance descended from above, imbuing the scene with a profound sense of mystery. Within the Yang spring, the water shimmered with a vermilion gold hue, resembling glowing divine blood as it churned with fine golden radiance. Waves of heat radiated from it, and steam continuously billowed upward. Along the banks, numerous jade ganoderma, etched with flame patterns, contained a dense, powerful Yang qi. Across the water's surface, golden red Tao imprints intertwined, their sight alone enough to draw one's spirit away. Without a doubt, this pool of sacred water would be priceless if taken to the outside world, worth a fortune beyond measure. It could replenish one's primordial qi and nourish the body's muscles and bones. In contrast, the yin spring contained a liquid that looked like molten sapphire, emitting a faint moonlight within its profound chill. The water was as transparent as glaze, and ice crystals covered in Tao imprints hovered suspended above its surface. Higher up, star-like fluffs seemed to drift down, blending a sense of sacred atmosphere with a piercing, frigid aura. Orchids grew on the shore, their petals frosted with ice crystals. Rooted in jade marrow, they released a refreshing fragrance that cleansed the mind. The liquid in these pools could heal wounds within one's pure yang consciousness, nourish the spirit, and render the Taoist heart both tranquil and increasingly steadfast. Generally speaking, if the two pools were used together, they could replenish the Tao foundation. If one's inner body contained a gate, the liquid could even flow backward into it, providing vital nourishment. The latter was the true manifestation of this place's greatest fortune. The Shuangshu existed primarily to nurture the gate. Qinming and Li Qingyu traversed the mist and haze, stepping across the smooth, jade-like ground to the banks of the twin springs, which were veiled in a soft, hazy glow. They shared a silent understanding, needing no words. Qinming stepped into the Yang spring, instantly feeling a wave of heat surge over him. Though it stung slightly, he knew this was a nourishing substance that would not truly harm his body. The fiery red liquid, shimmering with a golden light, enveloped him. Li Qingyu entered the yin spring, appearing as if draped in moonlight. She grew even more radiant and ethereal like an immortal maiden from the Jade Palace descended to this realm. Her hair clung to her skin, wet and glistening, while her bright eyes reflected Qinming's figure. "It is beginning," Qinming said. Only a thin veil of luminous mist separated the two adjacent pools. Now, as the Yang and Yin springs resonated, two distinct types of mystical substances steamed from the waters. They converged at the mist's center, slowly ascending before transforming into a brilliant, shimmering spiritual light like drifting fireflies. This ethereal glow, dazzling and magnificent, rained down upon the two of them. This was the origin of the name Liang Shuangshu Ruins, the ruins of the drifting firefly twin springs. Qinming and Li Qingyu felt their consciousnesses clear, and their bodies relax, as if they had returned to the womb to be nourished anew, replenishing their latent potential. Only a subtle change, Qinming sighed inwardly. The improvement for me is still limited. Yet, this substance was specifically designed to enhance innate talent. The fact that it had any effect on him at all was already a testament to its extraordinary power. Of course, if anyone else had heard his thoughts, they would have been utterly shocked. This was the legendary Liang Shuangshu Ruins, how could it be ineffective for a Grandmaster? It should have been a monumental opportunity for a breakthrough. And yet, such was the reality, Qinming's foundation was simply too profound. As long as it's effective for Qingyu, he murmured to himself. The drifting fireflies fell like a gentle rain, descending upon them. Combined with the original seven-colored mist, the light completely enveloped the two figures. After an unknown amount of time, Qinming and Li Qingyu rose to swap pools. By now, even Qin Ming's hair was damp. In the Yang spring, the red jade-like molten liquid rippled with gold dust, reflecting his perfectly proportioned body, which stood straight and glowed with a faint, precious luster. As for Li Qingyu, she was like a lotus emerging from clear water. Her bright eyes and white teeth shone, and the gauze dress clinging to her body added a touch of hazy beauty. Her cream-like skin seemed as if it would burst at a touch, her peerless figure stirring the heart. Once they had exchanged places, the two spring pools began to rotate slowly, distinct from the jade marrow rock platform itself. In the misty area between them, more lying fireflies appeared, ascending and descending in a sacred and magnificent display. Inside my body. Li Qingyu opened her beautiful eyes and exclaimed in surprise. What's wrong? Qin Ming asked. Li Qingyu replied, I seem to hear the lingering resonance of a great bell, a sound originating from the very depths of my body. Hearing this, Qin Ming's expression turned solemn. Sense it carefully and trace the source. If you need help, I can assist you. This was truly strange, making them both take the matter seriously. After a short while, Li Qingyu's expression changed. I've discovered a hazy gate deep within my body, she said. It's trembling, emitting a sound. Qin Ming immediately sat upright, no longer leaning against the pool wall. His eyes shone with a brilliant light. Qingyu actually has a gate within her body, and she sensed it herself. The inverted Tushita Palace prioritized candidates who possessed an internal gate. However, such individuals were incredibly rare, almost impossible to find. Moreover, it was extremely difficult for those with internal gates to detect them on their own. Only when the Supreme Tao lineage awakened could they be accurately identified. For Li Qingyu to sense it herself was truly astonishing. Qin Ming looked at her and said, You've met the requirements to enter the Tushita Palace. This essentially secured her a spot in advance. If word got out, it would surely cause a massive uproar. Then, Qin Ming smiled. My Qingyu has the potential of a Tao venerable. Li Qingyu sensed something and said, that Tao gate is drawing in spiritual light, shimmering like fireflies, which is triggering a resonant, bell-like vibration. Qin Ming asked with concern, what's the exact situation? Li Qingyu looked at him and said, Come and explore it with me, it shouldn't be a bad thing. This was a sign of absolute trust. Otherwise, a gate concealing the top secrets of the Supreme Tao lineage would never be shared with anyone, let alone explored together. Qin Ming did not hesitate. His spirit surged forth, instantly blazing like a sun across the sky. He swiftly extinguished its radiance, calming his presence until no dangerous power emanated from him. He merged into Li Qingyu's physical body, joining her to explore the gate. In an instant, the afterglow of the yellow bell and great bell within Li Qingyu's jade-like bones and flesh grew clearer. Her body and spirit began to glow faintly, becoming more sacred and flawless. Guided by the bell's chime, they arrived before an ancient gate within an unfathomable space inside her body. The yin-yang twin springs converged here, and the drifting firefly lights that rose from them all flew toward this place, entering the gate. Qin Ming spoke, the legend is coming true. The miraculous essence from Xuanhuan is flowing backward into this gate. The gate was heavy and imposing, carved with ancient patterns. Its Tao resonance was so natural that it tempted one to push it open and discover what lay beyond. They pushed together. Yet, despite Qin Ming's chaos force being utterly domineering, a power said to be capable of shaking the heavens, they were powerless. They could not open the gate. Qin Ming said, No rush, let things take their natural course. Li Qingyu nodded. She had always been composed and unhurried. Even when the saints had suppressed her, she faced it with serenity, treating it as a brief, challenging phase in her life's cultivation. Normally, she was elegant and ethereal, a figure of transcendent purity. Yet, whenever she was with Qin Ming, she found it easier to blend into the warmth and bustle of ordinary life. Just now, standing before that mysterious, profound gate, her eyes crinkled into crescents, and a sweet smile played on her lips as she chatted casually with Qin Ming. Li Qingyu suddenly said, the sounds emanating from the gate are vibrating continuously. They make my form and spirit feel as if they are being tempered, slowly transforming. Qin Ming replied, Tushita Palace's choice truly has its reasons. Li Qingyu said, you should try cultivating here too. After trying, Qin Ming said, the effect isn't that significant for me. It seems to be suited specifically for you. This is the Tao sound resonating with your own body. He gazed ahead. This gate was indeed profoundly mysterious. After a long while, Qin Ming and Li Qingyu rose from the spring pool, changed into clean clothes, and hurried toward the exit. In the distance, Zhuo Qing, Yun Wangshu, Wang Pan, and the others had surprisingly not yet departed. Even if the water was merely remaining water, they were still willing to try it out as if it were sacred water. Over the following month, no new secret realms opened, and the territory governed by the Tushita Palace remained peaceful. During this time, besides their cultivation, Li Qingyu and Qin Ming occasionally went to study that gate. Li Qingyu asked, "Do you want to investigate whether there is such a gate within your body as well?" Qin Ming shook his head and said, "I haven't found one yet." His state of mind was at peace, and he was indifferent to whether such a gate existed or not. At the edge of the Tushita Palace grounds, the hidden disciple returned. So far, no one had noticed the man and his ox appearing slowly and leisurely on the horizon. The green ox walked ahead, lying on its side while practicing its breathing exercises. The young man followed behind, walking with the ox at his back. That day, Zheng Gui said in great joy, "Finally. After I sent 2 letters, my uncle from afar has replied, he intends to visit the Tushita Palace region in person. No matter how formidable that madman is, he will have to bow his head when confronted by someone who truly possesses the bearing of a great sage." Blank. End of chapter. Subscribe to the MTL World at Malworld 1 YouTube channel. Novel, Night Without Borders. Chapter 622, Remnant of Longevity 5373 plus words. Author, Chen Dong. Translator, Shadow Knight AK. Editor, Shadow Knight AK. In the demon court, golden palaces hung high in the sky, and jade pavilions stretched endlessly, rising and falling like a river of stars reflected in the 9 heavens. Golden lotuses bloomed spontaneously in the void, Tao resonance fell like rain, sweet springs gushed from the earth, and auspicious qi ascended in shimmering clouds. Within a demon palace, Zhou Tian, who stood twice and a half the height of an ordinary man, finished his cultivation. He exhaled a breath of demonic mist, and the turbid qi that surged out of the hall instantly whipped up a gale wind that roared like thunder. A moment later, he finished reading a letter and couldn't help but frown. My second brother, Tai Yi, keeps studying historical records and fixating on certain forbidden zones of death, investigating them ceaselessly. What exactly is he planning? Zhou Tian wondered, puzzled. He knew his brother was a man capable of great things, but the scheme he was plotting seemed extremely dangerous. If he were to blindly follow and participate, he feared he would be drawing fire upon himself, inviting a great calamity in the future. Zhou Tian thought of another matter. Zheng Gui has written me 2 letters in a row. Should I make a trip? He was somewhat tempted and considered setting out soon. Zheng Gui had mentioned that the Tushita Palace, under whose jurisdiction they fell, was currently in a special period, channeling rare resources, all of them extraordinary treasures of heaven and earth, toward its top-tier saints. The letter also casually mentioned a madman. With limited space, Zheng Gui simply asked him to take the opportunity to suppress the man single-handedly. Zhou Tian smiled faintly. This grand-nephew, whose blood ties to me are neither distant nor particularly close, does show some filial regard. Ordinary opportunities meant nothing to him. Only rare treasures could catch his eye. Zheng Gui knew all too well that a great sage held an exalted status and was difficult to persuade. If he had directly asked his uncle to cross domains and intervene, he wouldn't have had enough face to make such a request. Therefore, he had carefully crafted his words to focus entirely on the extraordinary treasures. As for the fighting, that was merely a side note. Zhou Tian murmured to himself, I'll cultivate a while longer. As a prince of the demon court and a future great sage, his status was naturally high. He lived in heaven, feasting on delicacies and jade nectar, with geniuses willing to follow him and noble ladies constantly visiting. Yet he never dared to slacken. In this realm, where countless races stood tall, competition was utterly brutal. If his breakthrough slowed, ambitious demons would surely try to replace him. Just as they were doing now. On the distant, majestic mountain, a giant demon, its form grown to the size of the heavens and earth, roared in defiance against the golden-winged great Peng, who struck across the sky. Both demons were wildly ambitious, honing themselves day and night, each aspiring to become a great sage. In this realm, no one was irreplaceable. Even the mortal races have a chance to rise, making the blood battle exceptionally fierce. Even a demon emperor might have clawed their way up from a lowly demon of an ordinary race, leaving a trail of bloody footprints. Days later, within the demon palace where Zhou Tian resided, demonic qi surged forth, scattering the sea of night mist. The area seemed plunged into a world-ending calamity as he devoured the Tao resonance of the 10 directions and absorbed endless mystical substances. Amidst the thunderous roars, he drained this region dry. Zhou Tian has broken through again. In the distance, a great demon manifested his heaven-mimicking earth-manifesting form, towering and majestic like an ancient divine mountain. Gazing toward the demon palace, a sense of helplessness washed over him. He truly couldn't compare. Zhou Tian's aura soared, his gaze sweeping across the 8 desolations. He declared, your ambitions alone are far from enough. The path of the great sage is not for everyone to tread, one must forge ahead through blood and fire. He had been spurred to action after sparring with the youthful, fifth, some time ago, after grueling cultivation, he had finally achieved another breakthrough. Zhou Tian's eyes grew deep as he said, "Old Five, where are you? Our last exchange ended abruptly before I could even use my trump cards. If we meet again, I will defeat you with a single hand." The Furnace Palace had been receiving frequent visitors lately. Qinming and Li Qingyu had been in seclusion for a long time, delving into the profound and mysterious gate, shutting themselves off from the vanities of the outside world. But necessary exchanges still had to be made. Just as they were now, preparing to share the immortal tea brought by Lu Xunjun. The tea room was quiet and elegant, the table simple and clean, and the tea set as smooth and warm as jade. Boiling water was poured into the pot, and the tea leaves unfurled like drifting clouds. Wisps of white mist rose, filling the room with a crisp, refreshing fragrance and a sense of tranquil serenity. Li Qingyu sat quietly, sipping the tea. Then, she closed her eyes, her eyelashes trembling slightly, as a crystalline and gentle, mysterious wisdom light emerged from her body. Lu Xunjun was astonished. The effect was far too obvious. He knew well the properties of immortal tea. Its first brew was the most powerful, capable of washing away the dust of the mind and enhancing one's comprehension. Among the many rare treasures of heaven and earth, this tea was of the highest grade. After all, the Tushita Palace placed the greatest importance on the legendary gate and one's comprehension. Lu Xunjun sighed inwardly. Only when this tea was paired with someone of such immense spiritual talent would such a miraculous sight occur. In just a few dozen breaths, Li Qingyu's mind had cleared considerably. A pure radiance overflowed from her brow, slowly rising as Dao flowers bloomed in the void. Then, the petals drifted down, swirling around her entire body. Truly breathtaking. Lu Xunjun no longer viewed Li Qingyu as a mere rising star of the fourth realm but began to regard her as his equal. As for his earlier thoughts, he had completely severed them. How could he still dare to harbor the idea of having her follow him at his side? By now, who didn't know the Guardian's might? He had single-handedly suppressed the saints. Recently, the name Zhongguang had spread throughout all the sects. After Li Qingyu gradually came to her senses, Lu Xunjun personally poured the tea, looked at Qinming, and said, "Fellow Taoist, please try this tea." He was somewhat expectant, wanting to see what kind of reaction this madman would have after drinking the tea. This could be considered another way to explore his true depth. So far, none of the saints had been able to fathom this person's true cultivation. Qinming took a sip and said, "With a cup of clear tea in hand, the dust of the mortal heart is completely washed away." Lu Xunjun nodded with a smile, waiting for him to close his eyes and savor the tea, hoping to see the spiritual radiance that would manifest on his body. Qinming continued his critique, all sorts of thoughts fade away in this crisp fragrance. Only tranquility and pure joy remain here. Lu Xunjun's smile deepened, waiting for him to close his eyes. However, in the end, he was stunned. The matter ended here, and there was nothing more. Qinming continued to take small sips of tea, no longer commenting. Lu Xunjun. Did this madman really treat this enlightenment tea, a heaven and earth treasure, as ordinary tea? Lu Xunjun refused to give up and asked cautiously, "Brother Zhongguang, do you not feel anything special?" Qinming set down the teacup and said, "After drinking it, my heart is as still as heaven and earth, deaf to the world's clamor. It is indeed a fine tea." Lu Xunjun finally understood. For the madman, this tea served only to calm his mind, offering no other significant benefit. How is this possible? Lu Xunjun thought. This is absurd. Then, a shocking possibility struck him. The only way this could happen was if the madman's innate comprehension far exceeded the tea's enhancement range, rendering it truly ineffective. Lu Xunjun's eyes widened as he stared blankly at the man across from him. At this moment, he was utterly convinced. The very comprehension that Tushita Palace prized above all else was immeasurable in the madman. "Brother Zhongguang, you truly leave me in awe." Lu Xunjun cupped his fist in respect. The more he pondered, the more he felt the madman before him was like a heavenly dragon amidst the clouds. The higher he looked, the more unreachable the figure seemed. Qinming spoke, "While this tea is excellent, purported to be a cutting from the immortal tea, it remains merely a product of the fifth realm and has little effect on me. Only the aged leaves from the mother plant itself would yield truly miraculous results." Lu Xunjun was stunned. What a joke. Only ancestor tea or earth immortal mother tea could affect him. Just then, Li Qingyu fully regained her clarity. Extremely satisfied, she took out the moon god flower to exchange for the tea. The following day, Yun Wangshu visited, bringing spirit replenishing soup and another heaven and earth treasure to exchange with Li Qingyu for the golden flame flower and moon god flower. She was usually cold and aloof, but today her smile bloomed like a flower. She lingered in the Furnace Palace for a long time before leaving, warmly inviting Li Qingyu and Qinming to visit the Dakai Great Red Heaven Dojo another day. Li Qingyu watched her depart, wrinkled her nose, and glanced sideways at Qin Ming. I think what she wanted to exchange most wasn't the moon god flower, but a person. Qin Ming laughed. Doesn't that just mean you have a good eye? Exactly right, keep talking like that next time. Li Qingyu's eyes curved into crescents as she laughed. Since the news of Li Qingyu and Qin Ming emerging from seclusion spread, people had been arriving daily, drawn by their fame. At first, the two had received visitors in person, but eventually, some of the requests became so absurd that they stopped appearing themselves. For instance, a female cultivator calling herself Lin Quanjing once came knocking. Qin Ming was stunned, recalling his own words in the Liang Shuangshu ruins. In this life, I only love the tranquility of forests and springs, Lin Quanjing, and am too lazy to test my sword's edge against the world. Li Qingyu's face instantly darkened, and she sent the visitor away without a word. What kind of people are there in this world? During this period, all the saints came to visit, each bringing sincere offerings to exchange for heavenly treasures. Qin Ming estimated that if this continued, Li Qingyu could recover all the losses she had suffered over the past 2 years. At the same time, he couldn't help but sigh. Under the rule of the Tushita Palace, the land was incredibly rich in resources, with countless ruins and secret realms. If one traced their origins, they were all connected to heavenly immortals and other such beings. By comparison, he felt that the Jade Capital realm was utterly destitute. Look at this place, he thought. The Moonwheel ruins, the Golden Flame secret realm, the Liang Shuangshu ruins. They're all safe. You can just walk in and harvest the treasures of fortune. Qin Ming's heart swelled with a profound sense of injustice as he compared the two places. Now look at the Jade Capital. When they finally did offer an opportunity, it was that ancient mist gate, and they didn't even know where it led. He remembered it clearly. The first time, he had been thrown into an otherworld forbidden zone. Sure, it was covered in precious medicine herbs, but everything was locked behind formations. You couldn't harvest a single thing until the time was right. And when the time finally came, endless hordes of creatures swarmed in. The place turned into a literal slaughterhouse of flesh and blood. Then there was the barbarian immortal realm. Even grandmasters got lost in there. What kind of place had wild Tang Yushangs and peerless giant elephants roaming free? One wrong step, and you'd be stranded there forever. Why are there no safe secret realms in the Jade Capital? Are they hiding them? Or are the ancient factions in heaven monopolizing them all, keeping them off limits to the rest of us? Qin Ming felt a surge of resentment. It was as if he were the neglected child of a stepmother. Li Qingyu brewed tea for him and said, then don't go back for now. Come with me into the inverted Tushita Palace. Ancient Furnace appeared and said, there are so many fortunes here because the Tushita Palace has returned to its original site. It naturally retains various legacies and treasures, after all, it operated here for ages. Qin Ming was stunned, the brief sentence contained a lot of information. Ancient Furnace continued, Jade Capital is constantly migrating, has no fixed place to live, constantly drifting, and has long since left its former original territory. Li Qingyu showed surprise and asked, why? Disaster, to avoid calamity. Ancient Furnace's response was very simple, but enough to explain the seriousness of the problem. The Night Mist world was too dangerous, even the Supreme Dao lineages were sometimes very powerless, facing some disasters that could not be dealt with, and they could only choose to flee far away. What is the specific situation? Li Qingyu asked seriously. Ancient Furnace sighed gently and said, the Night Mist world is vast and boundless. There are too many kinds of great chaos and disasters, how could one possibly recount the events of ages past? In short, the threat originated from the depths of that world. Qin Ming furrowed his brows. That is truly terrifying, to think it forced a Supreme Dao lineage to wander and abandon its ancestral home. Ancient Furnace spoke slowly, don't think the Night Mist world is dangerous right now. In truth, it is currently in a period of peaceful tranquility. It was precisely because of this that everything had stabilized, and the Tushita Palace had returned to its original site. Li Qingyu asked, the Jade Capital will return to its original location, too, right? Qin Ming replied, the Jade Capital has been suspended over Night Prefecture for too long, as if it's searching for something. He felt that Night Prefecture was somewhat strange. For example, why would the outer domain rogue cultivators who had built the rough framework of the Silk Book technique gather there in their old age? Ancient Furnace said, I think the Jade Capital will also return to its original place. It paused slightly before adding, in fact, it disappeared for a while. It's possible it went to set up outposts and cultivate some people at the original site. Qin Ming sighed, our generation is truly unloved and unwanted, abandoned by everyone. Ancient Furnace immediately laughed. Recently, the grandfathers under Tushita Palace's jurisdiction all want to get close to you. Qin Ming immediately waved his hand. No, their old man smell is too strong. Senior Furnace, please don't arrange anything. He had politely declined. Some matters were best left hinted at. At the same time, he patted his chest and added, with Qingyu here, Tushita Palace is half my home. We're all family. In the night sky, the 3-8 trigrams furnaces heard his words and transformed into faint, clear chi, dispersing into the air. Inside the furnace palace, ancient furnace spoke, you envy the Tushita Palace for its many secret realms, yet they believe the bloody struggles of the Jade capital are worth emulating. Some of the old bones felt their disciples lacked the tempering of blood and battle, and thus decided it was time to arrange some trials. In the following days, Zuo Qing, Wang Pan, and others paid visits one after another. Even Qi Lin lowered his head and took the initiative to come to the furnace palace, all for the sake of exchanging moon god flowers, golden flame flowers, and the like. The rare treasures they brought were, naturally, the ones Li Qingyu had missed out on earlier. Qinming benefited from this as well, enjoying saint-level treatment during this period. Though these heavenly treasures seemed to offer no obvious boost to him, this gradual, subtle improvement was crucial to his future achievements. Ancient Furnace said, even if you only widen your Tao foundation by 2 finger widths now, it could affect your upper limit by a full first heaven in the future. Qinming took the Ancient Furnace's words to heart, his expression turning solemn. Though the boost to his innate talent was limited, he felt a profound sense of clarity and lightness coursing through his body. His physical and spiritual form seemed to have been thoroughly cleansed, leaving him feeling almost transcendent. I can probably break through again, Qinming thought, his eyes gleaming with a brilliant divine radiance. The great realm obstacle, the period of physical and spiritual exhaustion, the delay in his breakthrough. All these setbacks were gradually fading away. I knew these treasures were extraordinary. Qinming calculated the time. He had been in the territory governed by the Tushita Palace for over 2 months now. It had been about half a year since his last breakthrough near the Bodhisattva dojo. I'll hold steady and get my body into peak condition before making another attempt. The main reason was the trauma from his last breakthrough. His physical body and spiritual domain had exploded more than once, leaving blood-spattered remnants scattered all over the mountains. It had even caused the great rock to spread its wings and flee, perching itself on a distant peak to watch the spectacle. Worst of all, the yellow canopy umbrella had recorded the entire ordeal on a memory crystal for his review. He had watched a small snippet from a third-person perspective and immediately lost the will to see the rest. 4 days later, Li Qingyu personally prepared hot water for Qinming, scattering many fragrant petals into the bathtub. Qinming bathed and changed his clothes, preparing to reach his peak condition for his next breakthrough. Li Qingyu took his outer robe and said, if the outside world finds out you're about to break through to another level, I'm afraid many people's Tao hearts will be severely shaken. The ancient furnace was jolted awake. What? Ming Zi, you're breaking through again. Qinming nodded. I'm currently adjusting my state. I should step into a new domain within the next 2 days. The ancient furnace seemed dazed. At the Grandmaster realm, if we look at the specifics, it's normal for a breakthrough to take over a dozen years. Even with extraordinary medicine, once every few years is about as fast as it gets. It stared at the young man's well-proportioned figure. You only just broke through. A few months ago. Qinming corrected it, it's been 6 months. This time, various rare treasures have purified my exhausted body, and the so-called delaying moment has lost its effect. The ancient furnace's lid clattered and bounced against its body, striking it repeatedly. Do you even hear yourself? 6 months. Hiss. It's best not to let the other top saints know for now, or I'm afraid they'd suffer a second, even worse blow to their confidence. Then, its expression turned grave as it said, it's truly unfortunate timing, but the higher-ups have made their decision. The bloody trial begins, and the departure is set for tonight. What? Qinming was stunned. So soon. The ancient furnace had mentioned it a few days ago, but he hadn't expected those old bones to be so decisive. The ancient furnace said, don't worry. I will accompany her personally. Qingyu will be fine. Stay home, focus on your recovery, and prepare for your breakthrough. Qinming shook his head. How can I be at ease? A couple of days won't make a difference for my breakthrough. Li Qingyu spoke up, Elder Furnace's presence is enough. Do not let this distract you. Focusing on your cultivation is what truly matters. Qinming replied, it's fine. I'll go with you. His recent breakthrough to mid-stage Grandmaster hadn't caused a drastic shift in his power, so it wouldn't hinder his combat performance. The ancient furnace ceased its protests. Indeed, a few days wouldn't affect his breakthrough. This time, saints and elite disciples from major Dao lineages, the Xuanhuan sect, Dao City, and the Dakai Heaven, were all heading to the outer domain to eliminate a group of ruthless criminals. The ancient furnace informed him, that group is incredibly bold. They are already nearing the borders of the Tushita Palace's jurisdiction. Li Qingyu asked, what is their origin? Remnants of longevity. Ancient furnace informed her, its expression grave. The fact that even it was so solemn showed just how formidable and dangerous that group was. Ancient furnace explained in detail, the remnants of longevity are a man-made disaster. In the past, some supreme Tao lineages were obsessed with researching the longevity body. Eventually, some test grounds lost control, and a portion of the experimental subjects escaped. Some subjects could not survive for long before they inevitably self-destructed. After all, their bodies contained various restrictions. However, some subjects broke through their shackles, thereby triggering a great calamity. In fact, some supreme Tao lineages were even destroyed at the hands of their own experimental subjects. Hearing this, Qin Ming gasped, drawing in the night mist. A supreme Tao lineage could be destroyed. Although he knew that throughout history, no Tao lineage could dwell in the world forever, their rise and fall were normal, and they would always be replaced. Even supreme places like the Jade Capital, Tushita Palace, and the Demon Court were no exception, they would eventually become the dust of history. But to be destroyed by the very experimental subjects they were researching was simply absurd. Ancient Furnace said, because the experimental materials they used were too terrifying. They excavated the top great tombs of the ancient era, and the experimental subjects were once the supreme experts of that time. Qin Ming's expression darkened. He knew all too well how terrifying such figures were, and even worse, some of them might have been revived. Just like the president beside him, who had already been brought back to life. There was also Yang, whose body harbored an unfathomable power, lying dormant and waiting. And then there was Xiao Chong, radiating a malevolent aura so fierce that no matter how you looked at it, he was no saint. Li Qingyu asked softly, have those experimental subjects survived from ancient times to the present? It's hard to say, Ancient Furnace replied. The ones from the distant past have likely long since decayed, returning to dust. But those from more recent eras, they might still be alive. Li Qingyu was astonished. So, there is more than one faction of these remnants of longevity. With the previous examples to learn from, other Tao lineages are still following suit. Ancient Furnace sighed. The only lesson those supreme Tao lineages have ever learned from history is that they never learn anything from history. The longevity experiment, subjects who broke free from their cages often underwent drastic personality changes, wreaking havoc across the land. They continued their research based on their own modifications, recruiting others and growing into formidable factions. These organizations were mostly incredibly bloody, treating all living beings as mere grass, becoming a true calamity. Thus, even if the original longevity experiment subject died of old age, the remnants he left behind continued to cause chaos. These were the remnants of longevity. In fact, some remnants of longevity, at their absolute peak, have even evolved into supreme Tao lineage, Ancient Furnace said, his tone heavy. Therefore, not all supreme Tao lineages were serene. Certain territories under the night mist were like living hells, utterly terrifying. Qin Ming asked, what level is this particular group of remnants of longevity? Ancient Furnace replied solemnly, very dangerous. They've survived for over 4,000 years without being destroyed. They are among the most terrifying remnants of longevity. According to its explanation, each millennium, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 years, marked a critical threshold. These milestones determined whether the original longevity experiment subject was still alive and whether the organization had evolved into a top-tier Tao lineage. Li Qingyu's expression turned grave. Could they be planning to attack the Tushita Palace? Ancient Furnace said, a group of remnants of longevity that has dwelled in the world for 4,000 years is indeed powerful, but they still lack the necessary strength. It's unlikely. At present, only a relatively active faction within the organization had drifted into the nearby territories. There were no signs that the group would act as a whole or take such a drastic and risky step. Li Qingyu remarked, in the current environment, if they are relatively active, does that mean they are limited to the fifth realm, with their peak at the Grandmaster level? Ancient Furnace replied, under normal circumstances, that's correct. The Tushita Palace was militarily strong and well supplied, so it naturally fought a war of attrition, leaving no opportunity for its opponents to exploit. Ancient Furnace warned, the remnants of longevity are highly adaptable. After all, their cultivation techniques include methods of treating others as medicine, sustaining their war efforts through slaughter. It is a bloody and horrific practice. That evening, a force of nearly 2,000 soldiers set out. Warships glided silently through the mist gate, bound for the outer domain. 3,000 li from the edge of the Tushita Palace's jurisdiction lay a small city. Fire springs erupted from the earth, entwined with blood-red mist, and the entire city was shrouded in a crimson glow. The city, with a population of less than 50,000, was deathly silent. The streets were stained with blood, and corpses hung from the city gate tower, swaying in the wind like empty skins, devoid of flesh and blood. The entire city was silent, without a single survivor. Every household contained only corpses, turning the entire city into a massive tomb. When the Tushita Palace's warships arrived, an elder soared into the sky, his eyes burning with murderous intent. Beasts. This group of remnants of longevity seems to be the most brutal kind, using other living beings as blood food to fuel their evolution. They must be killed on sight. Is this a provocation? It is a probe to test us. Soon, intelligence arrived from scouts, pinpointing the location of the remnants of longevity. They were 15,000 li away, still within this Earth realm. Kill. Ultimately, the Tushita Palace warships caught up with the group on a desolate plain, and a fierce battle erupted between the two sides. There were only about 500 remnants of longevity, but each one fought with a fearless savagery, proving to be a ruthless warrior whose strength far exceeded expectations. Are these their core elites? To think they possess Grandmaster-level saints. To everyone's shock, Wang Pan, a top saint of immense power, had his arm severed on the spot while fighting a Grandmaster. Though he fought with bloodthirsty courage, his 7-star sword piercing the opponent's chest, it was clear he had suffered the heavier wound. Had he not been accompanied by a guardian, his chances of survival tonight would have been slim. PFF'd. On the Tushita Palace side, a newly ascended saint was obliterated by the combined attack of several top-tier grandmasters. A few flashes of blade light later, his pure yang consciousness was utterly extinguished, and his vital essence was carved up and claimed by his attackers. He had a grandmaster guardian by his side, yet the guardian failed to rescue him in time. This was because a grandmaster from the remnants of longevity had blocked the guardian, nearly killing him in the bloody melee. With a sickening squelch, that grandmaster from the remnants of longevity was crushed to death by a grim-faced great grandmaster from Tushita Palace. He murmured, "You disappoint me. You're utterly lacking in experience." The next instant, his pupils dilated, and he instantaneously moved, soaring into the sky. Boom. A fierce great grandmaster-level battle erupted against the Night Veil. Both sides clearly possessed primordial chi, sustaining their combat states. The great grandmaster's blood sprayed. The elder from Tushita Palace and the remnants of longevity were both gravely injured. After a shockwave blasted the clouds asunder, they plummeted from the sky. Qin Ming's pupils constricted. The overall combat power of the remnants of longevity was formidable. Though they numbered only around 500, they showed no fear against a force 4 times their own, daring to charge and slaughter their enemies. As Li Qingyu fought her opponent in a blood battle, a grandmaster abruptly appeared to her right. His pitch-black palm swelled to the size of a millstone, slapping down toward her. Qin Ming materialized out of thin air, his kick detonating the black hand, which in turn caused the grandmaster to explode. A grandmaster-level saint. What luck. A top-tier human medicine. A young man instantaneously moved to the spot, his eyes fixed on Qin Ming. "You know my identity and still dare to come." Qin Ming stared coldly at him, raising his hand to strike. The young man sneered. "Saints like you, raised in secret realms, are nothing but powerful nourishments in the eyes of saint hunters like us, who were forged in blood and fire. You're just kindling to temper our war bodies." Suddenly, his smile froze. The spear he thrust forward was detonated by Qin Ming's palm, which then exploded his arm, followed by his entire body. How is this possible? He only had time to utter those words before Qin Ming, striking with full force, blew him apart. Even his divine soul could not escape, it was sent into the tattered cloth space to be fed to the yellow canopy umbrella. A grandmaster appeared like a ghost, lunging at Qin Ming. With a shring, Qin Ming drew the exotic metal blade, as white as jade. It was a prize from the supreme blood battle, and he had barely used it, it was almost rusty. Clang! The ancient furnace charged forward fiercely. Before Qin Ming could even swing his blade, the furnace had already lost its patience. The battle was exceptionally bloody. Though the Tushita Palace side had a clear numerical advantage, they still suffered significant casualties. Even a great grandmaster fell in battle. Among the saints, some were killed, and the elite disciples fared even worse. On the journey back, the expressions of the higher-ups were so grim they seemed to drip with malice. Even though they had wiped out the opposing force, a stifling rage filled their chests. Saint disciples, the very face of the sect, had actually been slain in battle by a gang of vicious thugs. An utter humiliation. A great grandmaster was actually taken down. It has been far too long since we had a blood duel. The good times are coming for you lot now. The next day, Qin Ming entered secluded cultivation, preparing to reach a new level of power. Meanwhile, a guest arrived from afar. Upon receiving the news, Zheng Gui was overcome with excitement. He bathed and changed his robes to welcome his uncle. The great sage has arrived in person. Who can challenge him? Let us see if that madman can still calmly say, "My heart is beyond the mortal realm, tending to drifting clouds, with no desire to compete in this world." He will surely be forced to bow his head. Blank. End of chapter. Subscribe to the MTL World at Malworld 1 YouTube channel. Novel, Night Without Borders. Chapter 623, The Great Sage, 2 chapters combined. Author, Chen Dong. Translator, Shadow Knight AK. Editor, Shadow Knight AK. Zheng Gui bathed and changed into fresh robes, showing his utmost respect as he hurried toward an ancient mist gate to welcome his clan uncle. Even as he traveled, his eyes sparkled, and a smile he couldn't hide spread across his face. He muttered to himself, "Zhengguang, you've humiliated me time and time again. Your good days are over." Tushita Palace and the Demon Court had both returned to their original sites, connected by ancient mist gates. Thus, the journey was swift. However, this secret passage between the two supreme Dao lineages was reserved exclusively for those of high status. Zheng Gui spotted him immediately, a towering figure who stood head and shoulders above the rest. An elder from the Tushita Palace had already appeared, waiting in the hall beside the ancient mist gate to receive Zhou Tian. "Uncle." Zheng Gui bowed deeply, his expression a mix of reverence and eager warmth. This was a man who had earned the title of Great Sage. Wherever he went, he was bound to be treated with the highest honors. Zhou Tian was a man of extraordinary martial bearing, standing 2.5 heads taller than the average person. Aside from being less thick than Shang Yiwu, his massive frame nearly rivaled Shang Yiwu's colossal build. He sent a telepathic transmission. "Can we truly obtain the heaven and earth rare treasures from this place? Others might not be able to, but you definitely can, uncle." Zheng Gui replied with a flattering smile. He felt that while the letter had been written with a subtle, nuanced hand, it shouldn't pose much of a problem. Zhou Tian's massive hand landed on his shoulder and squeezed slightly. A faint crack echoed as the pressure intensified. Zheng Gui's expression immediately changed. "Uncle," he said, "your strength is too terrifying. How many grandmasters in this world could possibly withstand it?" Whether it was the dragon race or the black tortoise, both were renowned for their strength. Zhou Tian was an ending law turtle, possessing the bloodlines of 2 distinct clans and having undergone a mutation. He was endowed with immense, innate strength. Zheng Gui had never crossed paths with Zhou Tian before. Now, he felt as though his shoulder was on the verge of shattering. Zhou Tian was only 2 years older than him, yet he already stood firmly within the Great Sage domain, suppressing many of the Demon Court's renowned demons to the point where they couldn't even lift their heads. It was truly terrifying. Zheng Gui keenly sensed that, by comparison, Madman's strength seemed just as formidable. His heart suddenly leapt. Could this, false filial piety of spring and autumn, be about to go horribly wrong? That guy. Couldn't he also be a great sage? The mere thought sent a chill running through Zheng Gui's entire body. If that were the case, he had truly committed a cosmic act of filial impiety by bringing disaster upon his own family. If his uncle were to lose, wouldn't he be guilty of filial piety by exterminating his own kin? The consequences would be utterly unthinkable. Quickly, Zheng Gui shook his head, dismissing the unrealistic suspicion. Everyone knew that Zhengguang and Li Qingyu were around the same age, only about 23 years old. To become a great sage at that age. What a joke. That was simply a fairy tale. The two bade farewell to the Tushita Palace elder and headed into the distance. Along the way, Zheng Gui never mentioned the madman, speaking only of the heaven and earth rare treasures. After all, this was a case of false filial piety of spring and autumn. One had to know what to prioritize. The two vanished into the night sky and arrived at Dakai Heaven City, located above the 9 heavens. Zheng Gui arranged the finest immortals cave-in for Zhou Tian. Though his face remained calm, his heart was a mess of anxiety and anticipation, yet he dared not let his intentions show too clearly, waiting for the right moment. When the time came, he would only need to casually mention the madman and invite the great sage to intervene. The great sage could then single-handedly suppress the madman. In truth, even if he wanted to find the madman now, he wouldn't be able to. Qinming had entered secluded cultivation. The secret chamber, personally prepared by ancient furnace, was located deep within the furnace palace. It was forged from exotic metal and covered in runes, not only to ensure its strength but also to channel Dao resonance and absorb mystical substances from all directions. The chamber was spacious, standing 33 feet high. Ancient furnace said, "You can go wild in here. The power that shatters mountains and rivers outside will be nothing more than a gentle breeze and fine rain here. I guarantee you won't break through this place." Li Qingyu was somewhat uneasy and wanted to stand guard for Qinming inside the secret metal chamber. Qinming smiled and shook his head, saying it wasn't necessary. He was mainly concerned that it would be too bloody and didn't want her to see it. He had fused too many true scriptures, and his chaos force had become increasingly tyrannical. He expected the entire great realm to be permeated by the true form tribulation, meaning his breakthrough would be anything but peaceful. In the end, Li Qingyu asked the 8 trigrams furnace to enter the chamber with him, just in case. Ancient Furnace agreed. After all, the Chaos Force's fierce reputation was known throughout Night Prefecture. Those who practiced such a cultivation technique rarely met with a good end. Inside the Tenjiang's secret chamber, Qinming sat quietly and took out the dragon silkworm, or more accurately, the scraps of the strange insect. It had been blown to pieces, leaving nothing resembling its original form. Its flesh was crystalline and had once been dragon-shaped, but now it lay in tattered fragments, the largest piece measuring less than the length of a palm. Ancient Furnace stared blankly as Qinming skillfully brewed soup and roasted the silkworm, completely shattering the solemnity of his earlier bathing and changing ritual. This helps refine the medicinal power, Qinming explained. And it satisfies my appetite, he added silently, omitting the second half of the sentence. Without the aid of external medicines, Qinming estimated it would take him 6 or 7 years of bitter cultivation to reach the next minor level. In the Grandmaster realm, such progress would already be considered remarkable. However, with the extraordinary medicine in hand, and the great realm obstacle, spirit form fatigue period, and signs of breakthrough delay all temporarily nullified, he had no reason not to break through quickly. The path ahead was still long, and he had to seize every hard-won opportunity to advance as soon as possible. Otherwise, wouldn't he be wasting the heaven and earth rare treasures that had been slowly reshaping his innate talent and enhancing his potential over the past 2 months? This time, Qinming wanted to play it safe. He wouldn't integrate the Tathagata force or Jade pure force. Last time, the explosion had been too devastating, he felt he had yet to fully assimilate the Qingtian true form. He was dissatisfied that the Qingtian true form only manifested a pair of giant hands. The rest of the body had exploded, and he longed to see the arms, or even the entire body, preserved. Although ancient Qingtian had ultimately only managed to keep the true form of a pair of giant hands, wasn't a new path forged by generations of pioneers. Moreover, after so many years, Qinming had every reason to suspect that ancient Qingtian might have made further breakthroughs. As a fellow native of Night Prefecture, Qinming knew the prefecture's spirit all too well. He ate the dragon silkworm and drank the meat soup. His entire body glowed as Tao imprints interlaced, and he began his breakthrough. The golden yellow meat in the richly fragrant soup whetted his appetite. The yellow canopy umbrella spun above his head, deployed to protect him during his cultivation. This was not the first time the 8 trigrams furnace had seen Xuanhuan. Both artifact spirits possessed fragmented and ancient memories, vaguely recalling each other. Qinming reminded her, Xuanhuan, no using the memory crystal this time. Moments later, his body began to burn. A torrent of heat surged through his limbs and bones, and his blood flow accelerated. An hour later, Qinming's transformation intensified. During this process, he circulated the chaos force to refine his meridians. He focused particularly on the Qingtian force, determined to achieve complete success. Mingzi's breathing technique is a bit frightening, Ancient Furnace remarked. With each of Qinming's breaths, Tao resonance surged. The air he expelled struck the exotic metal walls with deafening crashes. Clearly, even his exhalations alone could slay experts. The turbid air he forcefully expelled during this transformation was comparable to a flying sword. A regular wall of copper and iron would have been pierced through. Smoke and mist swirled around his body, and Tao imprints spread across it. He was completely enveloped in white fog, looking like an enlightened being in meditation, ready to ascend at any moment. Qinming fully circulated the silk book technique, activating all his internal forces simultaneously to fuse them into one. This time, the process did not cause him the bone-shattering agony he had experienced before. However, the sensation of needles pricking him and a faint, underlying ache, some minor issues, still persisted. Much better than last time. Qinming did not rush. He slightly slowed the speed of his internal energy circulation, carefully inspecting every minute node within his body to find any dangerous factors that were incompatible with the chaos force. If I forcibly suppress it, I won't disintegrate this time, he realized. During his last attempt to refine his internal forces, he had used the life-altering scripture to slightly adjust the trajectory of his energy flow, which had yielded significant results. However, this time, Qinming did not plan to suppress it. He wanted to let nature take its course. Even if it caused a minor explosion, it was better to identify and trigger the problems early than to let them accumulate and lead to a catastrophic eruption later. The true scripture that the Qingtian force has merged with is of incredibly high quality. It contains not only the human race's mystical techniques but also the demon clan's top-tier true scripture, possessing the ultimate power to shake the heavens. Even to open the heavens. Qinming suddenly felt that once he had completely subdued and merged the Qingtian force, he could use it to cross-verify with the heaven-opening axe, which would likely yield some pleasant surprises. Ming Zi. He's cracking, the ancient furnace whispered. Qinming sat cross-legged, his expression one of solemn majesty. Yet, amidst this serene atmosphere, blood began to trickle from his brow, and cracks spread downward from his forehead. The sight was truly horrific, a person about to be split in two. Xuanhuan remained calm, having witnessed this before. She remarked, "Destruction precedes creation. Crack, crack, crack. You get used to it after seeing it enough times. I feel as if my hands could support the heavens." Qinming murmured. Even as his brow split open and blood-red fissures crisscrossed his body, he was still lost in thought. Ancient Furnace sighed inwardly. This is truly perverse. Qinming seemed to have lost all sense of pain, immersed in his own world of Tao enlightenment. He whispered, "Where did I go wrong? Why does the true form only leave behind the hands? Are the arms too fragile?" Ultimately, Qinming allowed his physical body to explode, and the scene was brutal. The gore was no less shocking than the last time. Ancient Furnace let out a cry of disgust, feeling unclean as it was drenched in Ming's blood. The main issue was that Ancient Furnace couldn't defend itself. That was Qinming's blood essence, which would eventually flow back into him. If it deployed a light screen and accidentally refined it into green smoke, it could cause Qinming to suffer a severe loss of essence. Bang! Qinming's body disintegrated even further. In an instant, Ancient Furnace was left completely bewildered. Two of Qinming's severed fingers were now embedded in the cracks of its furnace body. This Ancient Furnace had never experienced anything like this. If it were on a battlefield, it would have long since covered itself in Tao imprints and blasted the attacker back. Before it could react, an even more horrific scene unfolded. Blah! Ancient Furnace dry heaved. Qinming's half-severed left foot had just landed right in the large hole on its lid. This part of its body was like its mouth, and now it was stuffed full with half a foot. Ming Zi. Blah! Its lid shook violently as the blood-stained half-foot slid inside, as if it had been swallowed whole. The yellow canopy umbrella spoke softly, "You actually eat people." Splatter. Blood sprayed across it, and the umbrella immediately shut its mouth. It had been caught in the crossfire. A 10-jong high metal chamber might seem spacious for one person in seclusion, but it was hardly enough space when flesh and blood were exploding everywhere. The enchanting figure on the umbrella's surface was now stained crimson, making Xuanhuan look like she was wearing heavy makeup. The worst part was that it couldn't absorb the blood. It felt like it had been turned into a dying vat, which it found utterly insulting to its dignity as an umbrella. The yellow canopy umbrella decisively activated its memory crystal to record Qinming's tragic downfall once more. Blah! The Ancient Furnace's lid flew open, spewing out half of Qinming's foot from its body. Though racked with pain, Qinming found a grim amusement in the situation. "Both of you are flowing with my blood. Doesn't this count as?" "It does not," Xuanhuan retorted indignantly. Qinming continued, "I was going to say, doesn't this count as a blood bonding recognition?" The Ancient Furnace trembled, shaking off the blood coating its surface. "Ming Zi, focus. You're about to be completely blown apart." The third wave of explosions began, nearly obliterating Qinming's form. Xuanhuan spoke softly, "The great Peng rises with the wind, soaring 90,000 miles into the sky." This time, it was her turn to mock him. Even the Ancient Furnace sighed, "The great Peng spreads its wings and despairs that the heavens are too low, only to crash into the vault of the sky, leaving Ming alone in his sorrow." Qinming looked around the secret chamber, now stained crimson with his own glowing blood and scattered bones. He finally lost the mood to listen to their banter. After enduring the liver and brain smeared on the ground, and the Peng exploding in the sky, he began to calm his mind. He focused on circulating his adhesive force, reorganizing his mountains and rivers, and recreating his physical vessel. His severed hand and every shattered part of his body flew back into place, reforming perfectly without missing a single drop of blood. His reborn body was now even more resilient and powerful. During this process, Qinming focused his mind, using the life-altering scripture to correct and fine-tune the energy pathways of the Silk Book technique, refining them down to the smallest capillary. Deep within his flesh and blood, it felt as if a wilderness was being reclaimed. The black night mist was dispelled, and a surging golden river roared across the landscape of his body, bringing with it vibrant vitality. His spirit and form resonated, allowing the Qingtian force to merge more completely into the vast river of the chaos force. Suddenly, the great river surged, sweeping across the land of his flesh and blood, illuminating more of the darkened mountains and rivers, nourishing all creation. A warm glow enveloped Qinming's entire being. From his spirit to his physical body, he was undergoing a metamorphosis. His skin became clear and radiant, and his consciousness shone like the blazing sun. A clear, pure aura rose from his forehead, coalescing into Tao flowers that bloomed one after another, their petals fluttering down. Soon, he was covered by a divine flower rain. This was clearly not the end, but only the beginning, just like last time. At this stage, only the chaos force had been refined and the various scriptures reorganized. The fusion and transformation of his true form were still to come. Inevitably, Qinming exploded once more, splattering the room with blood. Ancient Furnace's mental state was about to explode as well, but it could only endure it passively. Qinming felt there was no need for the two special weapons to undergo their nourishment here. He spoke, "I'm fine. You two can leave." "Are you sure?" Ancient Furnace asked. Qinming replied, "I'm unharmed." Whoosh! The Ancient Furnace vanished instantly. The yellow canopy umbrella spun gracefully and followed it out. Li Qingyu, who had been waiting outside the secret chamber, immediately asked, "Senior Furnace, what happened? Why are you fleeing like that?" The enchanting figure on the yellow canopy umbrella smiled. He was licking the soles of someone's feet. "You demoness." Ancient Furnace fumed. This time, as Qinming's true form fused, the scene behind him remained a tapestry of all phenomena appearing at once. 1,000 cicadas taking flight, the sunwheel soaring, the pale moon hanging low, and a sky full of stars descending. The massive hands of the Qingtian true form had become even more solid. This time, they extended to the wrists, with parts of the forearms visible, shimmering with a faint golden glow and brimming with power. Because of this, Qinming was tempted to self-destruct, again to test his limits. Last time, in the wild mountains outside the Bodhisattva dojo, he had been too cautious to act recklessly. Now, within the Furnace Palace, there were no security risks. He wanted to delve deeper into his own potential and see just how far he could push himself. Qinming sensed that his life was temporarily safe and he could continue. For whenever he reached the most critical moment, teetering on the boundary of life and death, he would passively be enveloped in the jade burial suit. Golden threads would weave through his flesh, 5 viscera, and bones, and he would be coated in jade medicine. After his body disintegrated once more in this manner, he decisively put an end to this madness. Qinming's entire body turned ice cold, and it felt as if an abyss was opening in his heart. For the first time, he felt true terror. He had come too close to death, he truly could not risk another attempt. Even if he had mastered the secret technique, he could not simply act on whim. The so-called supreme forbidden cultivation techniques also had their limitations. This is likely a cultivation technique meant for the dead, he realized. Though he had managed to bring it to life, any further recklessness might truly turn him into a corpse. Immediately after, Qinming was enveloped by the jade burial suit and fell into a deep slumber, completely losing all perception of the outside world. He lay motionless. 6 months ago, his breakthrough in the desolate mountains had been a long process. Awakening, body reconstruction, and the subsequent slumber had taken a full 9 days and nights. Yun Wangshu received the news and asked Zheng Gui, "Did you really invite a powerful expert?" Zheng Gui beamed with a smile as bright as the rising sun. "Of course. When a great sage descends and looks down upon all mortals, who can possibly stand against him? Just you wait. Even that madman will have to bow his head and bend his back to offer a toast of respect. He himself couldn't defeat Zhongguang, but wouldn't his clansmen be a match for him?" Zheng Gui smiled. With his uncle personally arriving at the Tushita Palace, even a true dragon would have to coil itself and drink 3 cups of self-punishment. A white tiger would have to crawl at his feet, as docile as a cat. Yun Wangshu asked, "What is this person's background? Is he very famous?" "He is my uncle, Zhou Tian. He is around our age, yet he has already earned the title of Great Sage." Zheng Gui's eyes shone brightly, his voice powerful and resonant, filled with pride. Then, he told Yun Wangshu more about the situation in the distant lands. "My uncle is not only peerlessly powerful himself, but even the friends by his side are all peerless heroes who stir the winds and clouds, each possessing the potential of a great sage." Yun Wangshu's interest was immediately piqued. Her beautiful eyes blinked as she said, "Tell me more." Zheng Gui said, "There are 3 other great sages who have sworn brotherhood with him, each with a more impressive background than the last. The eldest sister, Meng Jiu, is the legendary dream insect, who has now defeated the emperor insect. The second brother, Tai, you can tell from his name alone how high his ambitions are. The third brother, Mu Xinian, has stepped into the domain of time and is unfathomably deep." Yun Wangshu's bright eyes sparkled as she listened, slightly lost in thought. Such dazzling figures, 4 great sages sworn as brothers, their future would surely be filled with endless legends. It was truly a captivating thought. 2 days later, Zheng Gui subtly made his move. He casually mentioned to Zhou Tian that there was a madman who frequently insulted turtles. Zhou Tian glanced at him impassively. "You punk. You didn't just lure me here to vent your frustrations, did you?" Zheng Gui quickly lowered his head. "I wouldn't dare, uncle. There truly are heaven and earth rare treasures here, and that madman has reaped a bountiful harvest from them." Zhou Tian said, "It seems you've suffered quite a bit at his hands, otherwise you wouldn't have gone to such lengths. Fine. Lead the way. I've just broken through my cultivation, and my hands are itching for a fight. I'll suppress him with a single strike. Zheng Gui's face instantly lit up with a beaming smile. The status of a great sage was so venerable that they were extremely difficult to persuade. Now, his uncle had not only agreed to help but had even volunteered to stand up for him. What? He just went into seclusion 2 days ago. Halfway there, Zheng Gui received the news, and his brow furrowed deeply. How could this be? He had managed to bring a great sage in person, yet it felt like he had thrown a punch into a pile of cotton. He had wanted to see the madman bow his head and be crushed in front of everyone. That day, the madman had been utterly insufferable in the Liang Shuangshu ruins. Now that someone had finally come to collect him, he had actually managed to escape. Oh well, what a disappointment, Zhou Tian said, shaking his head. Zheng Gui replied, he can't stay in seclusion forever. Zheng Gui escorted Zhou Tian back to the cave mansion inn. The more he thought about it, the more he felt something was off. It must have been my invitation to my clan uncle that leaked the news. Has that madman grown afraid? Soon, a few people learned that Zheng Gui intended to cause trouble for Grandmaster Zishan in the Furnace Palace. Is he insane? I admit he's incredibly strong, a top saint. But his tortoise shell was smashed last time. How does he still dare to challenge him alone? No, this time he has invited a peerless young expert. Word has it he is a legendary future great sage. Am I hearing this right? An expert who has already earned the title of great sage. Such a dazzlingly brilliant figure has actually arrived. I must go and see him with my own eyes when the time comes. In a very short time, this news spread like wildfire. Zheng Gui stopped hiding his intentions. Stepping out, he openly admitted, his name is Zhou Tian. He is His Highness of the Demon Court, my uncle. Naturally, this caused a massive stir. The personal arrival of a demon clan highness who had earned the title of Great Sage sent shockwaves through the cultivation world, and the top-tier Taoist lineages were all buzzing with discussion. Many people's spirits were roused, eagerly anticipating this clash of titans. Zheng Gui shook his head calmly. There will be no bloody battle. Once my uncle makes his move, he can suppress him with a single hand. Someone else disagreed. Not necessarily. Zhengguang is too powerful. Some believe he might also be a great sage. Zheng Gui's expression remained calm. How old is he? I've heard he just turned 23. Let me ask you, are there any great sages that young? For a moment, many fell silent. Those who harbored doubts couldn't help but admit they were overthinking when they considered Zhengguang's age. He was simply too young. The crowd realized that no matter how unfathomable Zhengguang seemed, he was about to be measured against a true master. Before Zhou Tian, who possessed the bearing of a great sage, even the madman's previously stunning performance would now pale in comparison. Over a month ago, at the Liang Shuangshu ruins, some had already been defeated into submission, while others were filled with suppressed rage. Now, hearing that great sage Zhou was about to make his move against the madman, some felt an immediate surge of adrenaline. I can't wait. I'm desperate to see Zhengguang forced to bow his head. Zhengguang, hurry up and emerge from seclusion. I can't wait any longer. Others even wondered, could Zhengguang be avoiding the fight? Li Qingyu naturally heard the rumors. Her delicate brows furrowed slightly, and a flicker of worry crossed her mind. Great sage was not a title one could simply throw around lightly. The ancient furnace quietly slipped away, taking a distant glance at Zhou Tian. It really is him, it muttered to itself. Upon its return, it informed Li Qingyu, nothing. No need to worry. Mingzi has fought him before. As for the outside world, the ancient furnace wouldn't say a word, leaving Zheng Gui to feel utterly humbled. At that moment, Zheng Gui stood with his hands behind his back and said, I also suspect, has he really emerged from seclusion? He's probably just avoiding my uncle's great sage-level sharpness. His words immediately sparked a commotion. The crowd buzzed with discussion, their anticipation for Zhengguang's emergence growing even stronger. Several days later, Qinming awoke and stepped out of the secret chamber. Did everything go smoothly? Li Qingyu had already prepared hot water for him. Xuanhuan chimed in, of course it did. He's soaring 90,000 miles straight up. Qinming promptly dunked the creature underwater in the wooden tub. He truly wondered just how uninhibited the woman, into whom the yellow silk canopy had originally transformed, must have been. When the news spread, Zhengguang had emerged from seclusion. Zheng Gui was instantly invigorated. He rushed to the cave mansion inn to find Zhou Tian. Uncle, that arrogant man is no longer avoiding the fight. He has officially emerged. Zhou Tian nodded calmly. It seems he's become a thorn in your side. Is it really that serious? Come on, I'll help you out. In an instant, this entire region erupted in excitement. The great sage Zhou Tian arrived in person at the Furnace Palace, standing with his hands behind his back before the hall's gate. Blank. End of chapter. Subscribe to the MTL World at Malworld 1 YouTube channel. Novel, Night Without Borders. Chapter 624, Turning an Enemy into an Uncle, 2 chapters combined. Author, Chen Dong. Translator, Shadow Knight AK. Editor, Shadow Knight AK. What? The great sage from the demon court has personally arrived at Furnace Peak. Quick, let's go take a look, we absolutely cannot miss this momentous occasion. Even the numerous prodigies in secluded cultivation were shaken. Hearing the news, they hurriedly emerged from their retreats, all eager to witness great sage Zhou's presence. We should finally be able to gauge the true depth of that madman's cultivation now, right? I've always felt his cultivation was absurdly high. If his age weren't so young, I'd suspect he was a great sage himself. The crowd rushed toward Furnace Peak, desperate not to miss the battle. In a sense, the madman's performance at the Liang Shuangshu ruins had exerted considerable psychological pressure on everyone. Even with a great sage present, some still believed the madman could hold his own in a fight. Lately, Zhengguang's popularity has been unnervingly high. Many felt he was shrouded in a mist they were desperate to clear, hoping to see his true power. Core saints like Lu Zunjun, Zuo Qing, and Wang Pan, much like everyone else, rushed over in a frenzy upon hearing the news, desperate to witness a great saint in action. If even the saints were this eager, one can only imagine the excitement of the others. Zhou Tian's speed was so extreme that he tore through the sea of night mist, arriving outside Furnace Peak with Zheng Gui in what seemed like an instant teleportation. Had many not been keeping a close watch on this uncle-nephew pair, they might well have missed the battle entirely. Uncle, there's no rush. Yet, it was Zheng Gui himself who grew impatient. What he wanted most was to see the madman subdued in full view of the crowd, anything less would be far too anticlimactic. The two of them had arrived too quickly, many people hadn't even caught up yet. Zheng Gui held the memory crystal in his hand, already recording Zhou Tian's profile. The latter was tall and valiant, as immovable as a mountain, exuding an immense sense of pressure. Zheng Gui could already imagine the upcoming iconic scene. At that time, the great sage would stand before Furnace Peak, reach out with one hand, and force the madman to kneel on one knee, unable to lift his head, publicly bowing low and admitting defeat. Zheng Gui's mouth split open, the curve of his lips no longer contained, smiling silently. He desperately wanted to see the moment Zhengguang bent over and lowered his head. You seem pleased. Zhou Tian's left hand was behind his back, and he glanced at him sideways. Zheng Gui said, I'm thinking, since the true great sage has already arrived here, will the madman be terrified in his heart, and how miserable will he be at that time? In the blink of an eye, the originally quiet area near Furnace Peak was already crowded with figures. The disciples of many Dao lineages rushed over through the small mist gates, fearing they wouldn't have time to watch the battle. Zhou Tian had remained in the cave mansion inn, refusing all visitors, unaware of the growing anticipation among the disciples of the various Dao lineages. He hadn't even bothered to ask his opponent's name. After all, the man was no match for him, a single strike would be enough to suppress him. This was the confidence of a great sage, a calm, collected composure etched into his very bones, every gesture radiating self-assurance. Even when socializing with his peers, he never inquired about their strength, they were all inferior to him, anyway. Zheng Gui had invited him with a letter written in the spring and autumn style, focusing mostly on rare treasures of heaven and earth. He had only briefly mentioned needing someone to suppress a certain individual, referring to the man only as a madman, or an arrogant fool. Zhou Tian was oblivious to the madman's notoriety in this place. Seeing the crowds flocking in, he felt a flicker of surprise. But he quickly dismissed it. After all, he was a renowned demon who had earned the title of Great Sage. It was only natural for him to draw such attention. Zheng Gui was elated, the scene he had hoped for was unfolding before his eyes. The crowd grew ever larger, a sea of people stretching endlessly into the distance. The onlookers kept their distance, not daring to approach, a testament to the awe and reverence inspired by a great sage. Moreover, a profound silence reigned over the place. No one spoke aloud, they all waited in quiet anticipation, a form of respect for the great sage. However, as time dragged on, many began to grow restless. There's no movement from the furnace chamber, has that madman not come out yet? Could he be lacking confidence? Is he feeling intimidated? That's likely the case. Some people, dissatisfied, began to whisper among themselves. Many felt that Zhengguang was about to take a massive fall. Though he was transcending the mundane and had recently stunned everyone, it was impossible for him to rival a great sage. Zhou Tian frowned. His hearing was incredibly sharp. Even from a distance, amidst the general clamor of the crowd, he faintly heard a familiar name. For a moment, his pupils dilated slightly, and he seemed lost in thought. Then, he glanced strangely at his nephew by his side. However, Zhou Tian showed no outward reaction. He would wait until everything was truly certain. Zheng Gui said, Uncle, don't be impatient. I'll call him out. Since arriving, he had never stepped forward or knocked on the gate. He had simply waited until the representatives from various sects had mostly arrived before finally showing a look of satisfaction. Madman. Zheng Gui had gotten so used to saying it lately that he accidentally let it slip in public before he could correct himself. He quickly rephrased, Zhengguang, come out and show yourself. He felt the grand stage had been set, all parties were in position, and all that was left was for the madman to come and bow before them. Everything was proceeding exactly as planned. Especially when he saw Yun Wengshu watching everything intently from a short distance away. Zheng Gui immediately beamed a warm smile and looked in her direction. Now, everything was ready, all that remained was for Zhengguang to make his entrance. Deep within Furnace Peak, Qinming had bathed and changed into the white robes Li Qingyu had prepared for him. The attire made him look even more dashing and refined, his aura transcending the mortal realm. A grandmaster in his early 20s is already terrifying enough, the ancient furnace muttered to itself. If he adds a title like Great Sage to that, it's just too much. It realized that Mingzi's journey thus far had been truly astonishing. With his age and achievements, he would command immense respect wherever he went. As long as he didn't wander alone and get cornered by some ancient monster with a dwindling lifespan. Qinming corrected, I'm 23 now. I'm not the youth I once was. Li Qingyu's beautiful eyes sparkled as she murmured, time flows like water, slipping away so quickly. The ancient furnace retorted, you're both in the prime of your lives. How can you be so dramatic? If you're going to act like this, how am I supposed to cope? Having learned of the situation outside, Qinming felt refreshed after bathing and changing, finally shaking off the blood-soaked images of the battle. He strode confidently toward the exit. After his breakthrough, a dense vitality radiated from his body. As he slightly clenched his fist, the air seemed to blur and distort. With the Qingtian force fully integrated, he felt as if he could lift mountains. The gates of Furnace Peak swung open, and Qinming and Li Qingyu stepped out side by side. To the onlookers, the man was as elegant as jade, and the woman's beauty was city-toppling. Their appearance instantly drew every eye. A wave of commotion rippled through the distant crowd. The true master had finally arrived. Many gazes burned with intensity, hearts pounding with excitement. They had waited for this moment for a long time. Even days ago, when Great Sage Zhou first arrived in this region, the anticipation had already begun to build. A battle between a dragon and a tiger is about to unfold. While I admit the madman is incredibly strong, even absurdly so, he's still far beneath someone who has truly earned the title of Great Sage. I won't belittle the madman, but this fight. It will be a one-sided slaughter. He truly cannot rival a Great Sage. At this moment, all eyes were fixed upon them. Even elders from the major Dao lineages had arrived, some had known the details beforehand, while others had rushed out of seclusion upon hearing the news. High above in the night sky, 3 clusters of pure energy materialized into the shapes of 3 8 trigrams furnaces, looking down upon the proceedings as they, too, observed the battle. Zhuo Qing spoke up, Zhengguang is arrogant, but he has the strength to back it up. We are no match for him. However, someone with the potential to become a great sage or a Dao venerable has already appeared. He shouldn't be able to withstand him. Wang Pan said, let us see how long he can hold out, it will also allow us to gauge the gap between ourselves and a great sage. Several core disciples stood together, discussing the matter in hushed tones. Qi Lin spoke, have you heard? The hidden disciple under our Tushita palace is rumored to have returned. If he has already obtained the title of Dao Venerable, his achievements would be no less than those of a great sage, only surpassing them. Lu Xunjun nodded solemnly. In his youth, he had aspired to that very title, yet it had remained an elusive, distant dream, far beyond his reach. Throughout history, how many had ever truly earned such a title? Strictly speaking, the status of a Dao Venerable is even higher than that of a great sage. Yun Wengshu remained silent, her gaze fixed on the 2 figures in the arena. She sensed a subtle, unsettling shift in the atmosphere. Zheng Gui turned back, a gentle smile on his face. Just watch, he said. The main event is about to begin. At that moment, a heavy hand slapped his shoulder. His uncle stared at him with a complex expression before turning his gaze to the young man opposite them. Qinming's expression flickered, his face contorting for a split second before instantly returning to normal. Zhou Tiān caught the change. He burst into a loud laugh and strode toward the young man and woman standing before Furnace Peak. Qinming laughed in return, leading Li Qingyu forward to greet him. The crowd held its breath, every eye fixed on the key figures in the arena. Then, a wave of astonishment swept through the spectators. They all sensed that the atmosphere had shifted. Zheng Gui, standing right there, was bewildered. Why was his uncle laughing so freely? Is the madman really that strong? He wondered. Is he so pleased that he's eager to stretch his muscles? Come here. Now, Zhou Tiān commanded. Zheng Gui's expression shifted. His sharp instincts immediately sensed something was wrong, and a wave of unease washed over him. What's going on? In the distance, the spectators, from young disciples to venerable elders, watched in utter confusion. Zhou Tian said, "Come over and call him, uncle." What the hell? Zheng Gui gasped, sensing disaster. He had felt a premonition of doom the moment he approached. Now, hearing those words, a chill ran down his spine, and his scalp prickled. He had asked his uncle to come and beat someone up, not to hold a family reunion. The madman had tormented him mercilessly. He had summoned a great sage to crush the man, yet now he was being told to bow his head and call the enemy, uncle. Many nearby clearly heard the exchange and were stunned, staring at the group ahead in utter disbelief. They all knew Zheng Gui's recent, blatant attempts to use the great sage's power to crush the madman and vent his frustration. He had set the stage for a grand execution, only for it to turn into a family reunion. Many of the spectators could empathize with his plight, imagining themselves in his awkward position. They figured Zheng Gui probably wanted to smash his head against a wall. Fourth brother. Before Furnace Peak, Qinming and Zhou Tian shared a warm embrace, a picture of harmony. Zhou Tian, ever perceptive, immediately recognized the relationship between Qinming and Li Qingyu. He smiled and asked, "Is this my sister-in-law? Truly a peerless beauty." In the distance, the crowd erupted. What else was there to misunderstand? These two were old acquaintances, having known each other from the very beginning. The surrounding area buzzed with noise as people gossiped and speculated. Zhou Tian scolded his nephew, "My brother went too easy on you when he thrashed you. Come over here and pay your respects, call him, uncle." Zheng Gui's head was about to explode. What kind of chaotic relationship was this? He couldn't accept it. He whispered, "Uncle, he's not even older than I am." Zhou Tian, tall and imposing even without anger, glared at him. "He's still your uncle." Zheng Gui stood frozen, his mind a mess. What kind of nonsense was this? How utterly absurd. He felt the full weight of the phrase, shooting oneself in the foot. But he couldn't accept it. How had things devolved to this point? In the distance, Zhuo Qing's beautiful eyes widened in disbelief. She had come today to watch a great battle, how had it turned into a family drama? This is truly absurd. Even the aloof Wang Pan couldn't help but sigh repeatedly. Ha ha. Qi Lin, utterly devoid of sympathy, burst into laughter. Yun Wangshu stared blankly ahead, her emotions churning. Zheng Guang is actually closely related to a great sage. Could he have some other hidden identity? Nearby, the crowd was in an uproar. At that moment, Zheng Gui was nearly petrified. He only snapped out of it after Zhou Tian slapped the back of his head. His heart was shattering. He had planned to make the madman bow his head in submission, but instead, he'd been utterly defeated. Why had he invited his clan uncle? To back him up, to subdue that arrogant rogue on the spot, to save face, and to teach the man that there's always someone stronger, a heaven beyond the heavens. But now, he wished he could just vanish from the spot. Zheng Gui had predicted today would produce a legendary scene, but he never imagined he would become a part of it. And damn it, he was the punchline, the most pathetic, miserable part of it all. He'd just gained an uncle in public, and now he had to formally greet his rival as a superior. Ah! He screamed inwardly, unable to bear the humiliation. While the saying goes, those who offend my clan shall be punished, no matter how far away they are, for him, it had turned into, those who offend my clan. Become my uncle. Zheng Gui's face turned deathly pale. He had been utterly humiliated in public, and his mental state was on the verge of collapse. Hurry up. Zhou Tian squeezed his shoulder until it creaked. Zheng Gui was driven mad. A warrior could be killed, but never humiliated. He couldn't understand why this was happening. The psychological gap between his expectations and reality was too vast. What was meant to be a grand, public condemnation had turned into his own social execution. He desperately wanted to smash his head against a stone pillar and pretend to pass out. Trying to salvage his dignity, Zheng Gui pleaded, "Uncle, can't we just call each other by our own names?" Zhou Tian stared him down. "You're asking for a beating, aren't you? This is my sworn brother. Are you still refusing to submit? Or do you actually want to be on the same generational level as us?" Zheng Gui's face turned ashen, his body trembling with a mixture of fury and despair. He felt truly hopeless. As countless eyes stared at him, he wanted to throw in the towel and run away. But Zhou Tian kept a firm grip on his shoulder, locking him in place. "This is your fifth uncle. Getting to know him early will be of great benefit to you." Zheng Gui caught a detail in the words, his heart jolting. He asked, "Why, fifth uncle?" Zhou Tian replied, "We swore brotherhood together. He is ranked fifth." Zheng Gui's eyes widened. Could it be that small circle that swore brotherhood with Mu Xinian and Tai? Of course. Your fifth uncle is also a great sage. Earlier, Zheng Gui had kept his chin up, determined to hold his ground, unwilling to lose face. But now, he was completely stunned. The madman was also a person who had attained the title of Great Sage. Then, it seemed there was no problem at all. Zheng Gui hypnotized himself, constantly repeating the words, Great Sage, in his mind, trying to get over that hurdle. Even though it felt awkward for a moment, he still had to bow his head. Fifth uncle. He called out. In the distance, the noise vanished, and the place fell into a strange, deathly silence. Because many people had heard their conversation. At first, everyone doubted they had heard correctly and wanted to confirm with the person next to them. Zhengguang has the potential of a great sage. He is one of the 5 great sages. That's what Zhou Tian said. How is this possible? The madman is only in his 20s, yet he has already earned such a title. Am I the one losing my mind, or has this world gone mad? In an instant, the place erupted into a deafening roar. Many were stunned, unable to believe it. They had always held Zhengguang in high regard, but they never imagined he would be even more terrifying than they had thought. The core saints were the hardest hit, their minds reeling from the shock. They had actually besieged a future great sage in the secret realm. No wonder they had suffered such a crushing defeat. Am I dreaming? This all feels so surreal. A great sage in his 20s. Is he the reincarnation of a heavenly immortal? Young and old alike were stunned, finding the situation utterly dreamlike as they buzzed with fervent discussion. The revelation that Grandmaster Zishan was a great sage naturally caused an immediate uproar. Without a doubt, with this identity exposed, Qinming's status here would skyrocket. Just as Zhou Tian had been personally received by an elder upon his arrival. Heavens, the young master-in-law is a great sage. The 2 maids in the furnace peak clutched their chests, feeling as if they were sleepwalking, unable to snap out of their daze. Outside the furnace peak, the commotion reached a fever pitch. Some were so shocked they went numb, staring blankly ahead. Everyone realized that there would be no fierce battle today. The epic showdown they had all anticipated would never happen. It was a case of the Dragon King's temple being flooded by his own kin. Zheng Gui tried to salvage the situation again. As a result, he got slapped. He got smacked for his trouble. Zhou Tian gave him a few slaps and explained the reason to Qinming. At this moment, even knowing the madman was a great sage, Zheng Gui still felt a bitter ache in his heart. How had it come to this? He had invited someone to help him fight, only to end up a generation lower in seniority. From now on, he would have to call Zhengguang, uncle, whenever they met. He was on the verge of a breakdown. Ah! He wanted to scream out loud. The others looked at him with strangely pitying eyes. He had made such a grand gesture, only to be the one who bowed his head in the end, turning an enemy into an uncle. Zheng Gui noticed that his uncle and Zhengguang were chatting happily. Meanwhile, the onlookers, after their initial shock, seemed satisfied with the juicy drama. For a fleeting moment, Zheng Gui felt as if the entire world had reached a reconciliation, leaving only him as the most wounded party. Especially when he saw Yun Wangshu gazing at the youngest great sage, her eyes practically turning into silk. It was a classic case of strength worship, and he felt like the sky was about to collapse. There are plenty of fish in the sea. The next one will be better than her. Zheng Gui consoled himself. After catching up, Qinming smiled and spoke, "Fourth brother, would you like to spar a bit?" He had already seen that Zhou Tian was deliberately holding back, unwilling to ruin the harmonious atmosphere. Yet, after reuniting with him, Zhou Tian was clearly itching for a fight. Was he looking to finish their last, undecided battle? In an instant, the surrounding chatter died down. Many people strained their ears, afraid to miss a single word. Could these 2 actually fight? Zheng Gui was even more thrilled, nearly clapping his hands in excitement. Zhou Tian offered a reserved smile. "Brother, let's just let it be." Qinming laughed heartily. "Fair enough. Let the 2 of us simply enjoy some wine and conversation instead." He understood exactly what the other man was thinking, so he deliberately chose not to take the bait. Behind his back, Zhou Tian's hand clenched slightly. How can this brother of mine be so straightforward? A faint smile remained on his face as he said, "Fifth brother, to be honest, I've made another breakthrough recently. I've reached a new level." Nearby, everyone was shaken to the core. Those who had earned the title of Great Sage were already famous figures, having reached a realm that their peers could only look up to. Once they reached such heights, breaking through again would naturally become increasingly difficult. Yet this Zhou Tian seemed to have no limits. After attaining the title of Great Sage, he had already made a new breakthrough. What kind of terrifying talent was this? Zhou Tian smiled faintly and said, "So, fifth brother, I'm afraid I might hurt you. It's not a good time for me to make a move." Zheng Gui's heart leapt. He's definitely itching for a fight. His uncle had always been fond of battle, and this was clearly a case of him being eager to try. The others, however, were utterly disappointed, feeling that a fight wouldn't happen after all. Qinming smiled and said, "No matter, fourth brother, please enlighten me." As soon as these words were spoken, the surroundings erupted in commotion. Zhou Tian smiled and waved his hand, saying, "Fifth brother, half a year ago, we didn't decide a winner. Now that I've broken through, let's just forget it." Hearing this, everyone was utterly shocked. Even some of the elders under the jurisdiction of the Tushita Palace had their pupils shrink. A Zhengguang in his 20s had actually fought with the great sage Zhou Tian, who was already famous in the region, and even ended in a draw. What terrifying talent was this? What a brilliant battle record. Zheng Gui's heart shook violently. No wonder his uncle was so polite to the madman and had even insisted on becoming sworn brothers with him. His performance was simply too frightening. At this moment, Zhou Tian added with reserve, "Brother, you still need to keep cultivating." Qin Ming said, "Fourth brother, your talent is truly extraordinary to have achieved another breakthrough, this is truly a cause for celebration." Changing the subject, he smiled and added, "Fourth brother, now that you've reached a new level, do you happen to have any spare precious medicine you no longer need? My Qingyu lacks resources, and it's rare to have a great sage brother visiting from afar." Fourth brother. Li Qingyu immediately offered a sweet smile and bowed respectfully once more. "Fifth brother, you're not playing by the rules," Zhou Tian sighed. Normally, a young and impetuous fifth brother would insist on a sparring match with him, wouldn't he? He had laid the groundwork so perfectly, yet Qinming kept brushing it off with such ease. Seeing Li Qingyu's gentle bow, Zhou Tian quickly gestured for her to rise and said, "Since this is our first meeting, I'll send a generous gift to my sister-in-law later." After all, fifth brother had asked outright, and this orchid-like, intelligent sister-in-law was playing along perfectly. He couldn't bear to be stingy. Qin Ming, satisfied with the outcome, finally played along and said, "Fourth brother, how about we spar a bit? Just a friendly exchange, and we'll stop once we've made our point." Zhou Tian nodded hastily. "All right, I'll hold back. After all, I've broken through. How about this, I'll try to grab you with one hand." The surrounding area instantly erupted in excitement. Had they finally reached this moment? The crowd was thrilled, their anticipation soaring. Qin Ming smiled and extended his hand. "Fourth brother, please." Zhou Tian kept his left hand behind his back and thrust his right hand forward. "I'll just grab you in. I can't move you." He had seized Qin Ming's outstretched hand in a flash, yet he couldn't pull him, unable to budge fifth brother in the slightest. Zhou Tian gasped, drawing in the night mist. How does this mysterious fifth brother feel so much stronger than last time? Could it be? He's broken through too. You've broken through as well. Zhou Tian blurted out. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd, and the air outside Furnace Peak seemed to plummet in temperature. "I'll try again." Still can't move him. Zhou Tian tried once more, but he still couldn't budge fifth brother. "I've made some modest gains," Qinming said with a faint smile. After integrating the Qingtian force, while he might not be able to uproot mountains or cover the world with his qi, he was already unparalleled in strength within the Grandmaster realm. The duel, naturally, did not continue. As sworn brothers, they couldn't possibly come to blows the moment they met. A few exchanges to test each other's strength were harmless enough and more than sufficient. Qinming and Li Qingyu invited Zhou Tian into Furnace Peak, where they hosted him with a lavish banquet. The gates of Furnace Peak were thrown wide open, allowing those outside to even glimpse the scene within. Zheng Gui stood by, personally pouring wine for the two great sages, a sight that left the crowd utterly dumbfounded. For a time, the onlookers refused to disperse. Just as Yun Wangshu, Wang Pan, Zhuo Qing, and the others were hesitating over whether to go in and pay their respects, a man in a bull slowly and leisurely approached from a distance. The blue bull was above, lying on its side with its eyes half closed. The young man was below, walking while leaning against the bull. The scene seemed bizarre at first glance, but the crowd quickly sensed a profound sense of the Tao follows nature emanating from it. After a moment's gaze, all their discomfort vanished. From the lineage of the hidden disciple, under the jurisdiction of Tushita Palace, we come to pay a visit. The blue bull landed gracefully on the ground and walked toward Furnace Peak first, the young man following close behind. Blank. End of chapter. Subscribe to the MTL World at Malworld 1 YouTube channel. Novel, Night Without Borders. Chapter 625, Tao Venerable 5209 plus words. Author, Chen Dong. Translator, Shadow Knight AK. Editor, Shadow Knight AK. The hidden disciple lineage. The crowd had not yet dispersed. Upon hearing the newcomer's identity, they all showed looks of astonishment. Rumors had been spreading recently that the hidden disciples had returned, and perhaps one had already stepped onto the legendary path of the Tao Venerable. If this were true, their achievements would surely be peerless among their generation. Instantly, the area outside the furnace pavilion erupted in a cacophony of voices. Just how strong is a being with the potential of a Tao Venerable? No one could say for sure. Even the saints found it an unreachable height, something far too ethereal to grasp. Looking back at ancient times, how many had ever earned such a title? Is a Tao Venerable about to emerge from our generation under our Tushita Palace's jurisdiction? A truly momentous event. Those who earn this title, could their status be even higher than that of a great sage? The crowd buzzed with excitement, their eyes burning as they stared fixedly at the backs of the ox and the man. The saints themselves had lost their composure, gazing blankly ahead. They were reflecting on their own paths. They, too, possessed peerless talent and cultivated tirelessly day and night. So what was missing? Where did they fall short? Why can I not step into that domain? The aloof Wang Pan murmured. Despite his top-tier aptitude, he could not even touch the legendary realms of the great sage or the Tao Venerable. Zhuo Qing's eyes blazed with fire. First, someone with the potential of a great sage appeared, and now a hidden disciple who has attained the title of Tao Venerable has emerged. My heart is stirred, and my mind is in turmoil. I must seek guidance to take a chance. Even if I cannot reach those heights, I must surpass where I am now. Lu Junjun's emotions surged violently. Is there really someone who has successfully walked this path to the end? This was his lifelong ambition, yet it remained forever out of reach. Now that someone else had seemingly succeeded, how could he remain calm? His heart was a whirlwind of conflicting emotions, strained to the breaking point. Where do you think you're going? Zhuo Qing asked, stepping forward and pulling Yun Wangshu back. I'm going to seek the Tao. Is there a problem? Yun Wangshu replied, her eyes rippling with emotion. If even the saints were this affected, one could only imagine the state of the other disciples, who were already in a complete frenzy. Even some of the elders struggled to maintain their usual composure, their gazes glued to the backs of the man and the ox, unable to look away. A man and an ox had arrived for a visit, entering the furnace pavilion. To Zhou Tian, they were uninvited guests. He was having a small gathering with his fifth brother, yet this man and ox had shown up unannounced, both looking remarkably stiff and formal. What was the meaning of this? The young man spoke first, introducing himself. But why was the green ox walking ahead of him? And why did the ox's expression look so grave? As they walked, the green ox suddenly stood upright. Its thick front hooves moved with surprising agility, clasping behind its back like a stiff-necked old man striding with measured steps. This is taking it a bit too far, Zhou Tian thought. He's not wearing any clothes, what's dangling down there? Oh, just the ox's tail. That's fine. Everything else has been tucked away. Could this ox really be from the hidden disciple lineage of Tushita Palace? Neither Qinming nor Zhou Tian thought its demeanor fit the part. It seemed to act on a whim, yet also completely uninhibited, strolling in just like that. And yet, its large blue face remained grim and joyless, exuding a certain old-fashioned austerity. The young man followed closely behind. He looked utterly ordinary, with nothing remarkable about him. Yet Qinming and Zhou Tian could sense the profound Tao resonance contained within his physical body. The green ox's gaze swept over the group like lightning. Zhou Tian looked at the young man and smiled. Brother, aren't you being too polite? Since you're here, you even brought an ox along as a meeting gift. The noise around the furnace pavilion vanished for a moment. Outside, a brief silence fell. Is Great Sage Zhou drunk? Does he even know what he's saying? No matter how one looked at it, the green ox's status was clearly high, yet the young man had carried it here. And yet Zhou Tian claimed the young man had brought the ox as a gift. You're quite the silver-tongued demon, the green ox remarked, its hind legs folded behind it. It showed no anger, its large green face remained impassive, unfazed by the presence of someone with the bearing of a great sage. Fellow Taoist, what brings you here? Would you care to sit and have a cup of wine? Qinming asked with a smile. As the host, Li Qingyu did not neglect a being who appeared to possess the potential of a Tao Venerable. She had her maidservant bring over chairs and set out extra bowls and chopsticks. Zhou Tian stared at the green ox and said, why do I feel like you're a demon through and through? Though the ox cultivated an orthodox, profound technique and appeared rather stodgy, Zhou Tian could faintly discern, deep within its eyes, that the green ox was suppressing a rebellious and arrogant nature. The green ox replied expressionlessly, don't say that. I also feel that I am like you, a demon. A demon king. Zhou Tian corrected, thinking the green ox really didn't know how to speak properly. The green ox nodded. Yes, I think you and I, a great turtle, are similar kinds. Zhou Tian shot to his feet. Is this ox provoking me? The green ox's front right hoof, no longer tucked behind its back, reached forward in a waving gesture. Fellow Taoist, what's the rush? I am merely straightforward and speak my mind directly. I mean no harm. It spoke with such earnestness that it didn't seem to be lying. Furthermore, the ox introduced itself, stating it hailed from the hidden sect and was named Niu Wuwei. Zhou Tian couldn't tell if the ox was being genuine or merely feigning sincerity. It was hard to discern whether this was a truly dutiful ox. Qinming was also staring at the green ox. Its will was as unyielding as immortal iron, completely immovable, without a single ripple of emotion leaking out. This was to be expected. It was difficult for anyone to peer into the minds of top-tier experts. Zhou Tian sensed something and secretly tested the ox. He instantly felt the green ox grow towering and mighty, as if it were an ancient era giant demon standing between heaven and earth, crushing mountains and rivers, its head touching the sky. With each breath, the clouds in the sky were drawn into its nostrils. This was the Tao resonance lingering outside the green ox's body. Once triggered, it revealed a terrifyingly grand vision. Zhou Tian tested it again and immediately saw a great green sun rising slowly. Its pure yang consciousness was immensely vast, capable of scorching the spirit and essence of anyone who dared to peer into it. He realized this ox was extraordinary, likely a future great sage. A smile appeared on Zhou Tian's face. Though you are in the Tushita Palace's territory and cultivate a Taoist profound technique, I suspect you possess a demon heart that has long been locked away by the dust of the mortal world. Why not come with me to the demon court? Qin Ming glanced at him. His fourth brother came all this way just to poach an ox. I also long for such a place, the green ox nodded solemnly. Not only did it not refuse, but it also fully agreed. Absolutely not, the young man beside him declared. The green ox remained unimpressed. You have to listen to me now. On matters of great importance, I will not tolerate your impulsiveness, the young man replied. Though he exuded the natural grace of the Tao, his demeanor was now stiff and formal. The green ox, despite his stern and stodgy appearance, was the exact opposite, always acting on whim. The plain-looking young man, brimming with Tao resonance, was named Li Yud. Niu Wuwei, Li Yud, Li Qingyu murmured their names. If the ancient monster bestowed these names, he must hold this man and ox in extremely high regard. Zhou Tian had tested them several times and confirmed a terrifying fact: Niu Wuwei's strength was immense, no less than his own. He was undoubtedly a great sage. Zhou Tian laughed heartily. Brother Green Ox, since you harbor the ambition of a great demon, why not shatter your golden ropes and break your jade chains? Today, let the dust vanish, and your light shine forth. Niu Wuwei nodded earnestly, deeply moved. You speak the truth. I want to become a demon. Li Qingyu was astonished. You mean you want to cause trouble, don't you? No. Li Yu did not show anger, but his expression was grave as he stepped in to stop the ox. Get out of the way. Niu Wuwei extended a front hoof and shoved him aside. Outside the furnace pavilion, everyone exchanged bewildered glances, unable to comprehend the situation. Is the hidden disciple a human or an ox? What is going on? Why are those two getting along so poorly? They're having an argument right in front of everyone. Wang Pan, Zhuo Qing, Yun Wangshu, and the others, all of whom were about to enter the furnace pavilion to pay their respects to the great sage and Tao venerable candidates, halted in their tracks. Zhou Tian's tone had become much more intimate. Brother Ox, he said, I feel as if we've known each other for a lifetime. How about we swear brotherhood? Qin Ming pondered. What's with fourth brother's lineage? Why does he want to swear brotherhood with someone the moment he meets them? He smiled, enjoying the show, as he gestured for Niu Wuwei and Li Yu to be seated. Then he instructed his grand-nephew, Zhen Gui, to come over and pour the wine. Zhen Gui's face twitched as he suppressed a wave of humiliation. All right, I'm willing to swear brotherhood. Niu Wuwei nodded. No. Li Yu stepped forward, interposing himself between the green ox and Zhou Tian. The green ox glared. I am the one in charge now. What right do you have to stop me? In an instant, its aura as a peerless great demon king erupted. It truly possessed the bearing of a great sage, causing the rune-engraved furnace pavilion to tremble slightly. Outside, many people's expressions changed drastically. Despite the distance, they felt as if they had plunged into an abyss or were facing a vast ocean. Their bodies instinctively seized with terror. Even a saint-disciple sighed softly, what an overbearing domain. Many people stumbled backward, their bodies nearly collapsing as they were overwhelmed by the invisible aura. Qinming and Zhou Tian radiated a serene light, maintaining the furnace palace wine banquet's normality. No one had expected the hidden disciple lineage to turn on itself. Many had anticipated a grand spectacle, a clash between a Tao venerable and a great sage. Instead, they were fighting among themselves. Niu Wuwei stood on his hind legs, his upper limbs swinging with blinding speed while his short legs drummed a frantic beat, kicking out at Li Yu with a series of thunderous thuds. The onlookers watched, dumbfounded. Is this how great sages fight? So unadorned. Li Yu's techniques were more conventional. He formed a series of mysterious seals, each one expanding outward in waves of Tao resonance. Niu Wuwei didn't just rely on his upper body. He leapt into the air, his short legs delivering a barrage of kicks that broke the sound barrier like thunder, their speed truly astonishing. Qin Ming watched, mesmerized. This brawl was remarkably straightforward. The most striking part was their expressions. The green ox was dead serious, and Li Yu's face was a mask of solemnity. This was no joke or playful skirmish. The battle was a fierce, deadlocked struggle. Is that the legendary Dao Venerable Seal? Some of the core disciples were so captivated they couldn't tear their eyes away, braving the immense pressure to enter the furnace pavilion. Yet in the next instant, they spat out mouthfuls of blood and were sent flying. The mere ripple from the domain of the ox and the man had been enough to leave them gravely injured. Gentlemen, harmony is to be prized above all, Qinming and Zhou Tian interjected, trying to stop the fight before they drew out some ancient monsters. Qinming noted that the elders under Tushita Palace's rule seemed unusually open-minded, practicing a true form of laissez-faire, non-interference governance. They never interfered in anything. Niu Wuwei and Li Yu took the advice to heart, immediately ceasing their fight and pulling apart. Outside the furnace pavilion, a wave of commotion erupted. The crowd was utterly stunned. They had expected the Dao Venerable to fight the great sage, but instead, the green ox had fought one of their own first. Even some of the elders were nursing headaches, massaging their brows in frustration. But more people were simply shocked. The hidden disciple lineage, one man and one ox. Which one was stronger? To have two great sage-level beings was far beyond anyone's expectations. First the madman, then Zhou Tian, both great sages. Their appearance in the territory governed by the Tushita Palace left the disciples here feeling a bitter taste in their mouths. It wasn't that they lacked peerless young experts of this level, but to have two appear at once. As a result, the younger generation was thrilled, feeling a sense of shared glory. They might not be two separate beings, someone remarked casually. Qinming spoke up. Little turtle, pour the wine. Zheng Gui froze for a moment before he realized, he was the one being called. For a moment, Zheng Gui's blood boiled. He had invited his clan uncle to fight, but not only had he failed to vent his frustration, but he had also inadvertently lowered his own generational rank. Now, he had to call his rival, uncle, and even bow to pour wine for him. This was enough to make a turtle die of rage. He secretly suppressed his emotions, silently reciting the heart-calming scripture. He told himself, this is a great sage. Do not oppose him. Be respectful. There will be many benefits in the future. Since things had come to this, what else could he do besides hypnotize himself? He couldn't exactly throw a tantrum, he'd surely get beaten to a pulp for that. Niu Wuwei shrank his body to the height of an average man and took his seat. His hooves were remarkably nimble, they clamped onto a wine cup, and with a schlap, he drained it in one gulp. I will take a step back, Niu Wuwei said. I will not join the demon court, but I can swear brotherhood with someone if my heart so desires. Li Yu remained silent, seemingly acquiescing. You really want to swear brotherhood with me? Zhou Tian was astonished. He had only mentioned it in passing. How could a hidden disciple under the jurisdiction of the Tushita Palace agree so readily? Niu Wuwei waved his front hoof. What's the harm in trying? His large, blue face remained stern, yet his words were remarkably candid. The orthodox Xuanhuan has countless paths of cultivation, some enter the mortal world, some withdraw from it, and some maintain non-action. I simply wish to experience the myriad forms of a bull's life and witness every kind of scenery. Niu Wuwei was quite candid. The so-called sworn brotherhood was merely a chapter in his life's journey, he was simply using the great sage organization to temper his own Tao. Zhou Tian wore a faint smile, showing no displeasure. They had formed the great sage organization for a reason. Otherwise, who would be so eager to recruit others into a sworn brotherhood for no reason? The group raised their cups, and the tension eased slightly. Outside the furnace pavilion, the crowd buzzed with discussion. Today, a royal highness of the demon race with the potential of a great sage graced us with his presence, and a figure from the hidden disciple lineage with the potential of a Dao Venerable also appeared. Several times, a dragon-tiger battle nearly erupted, yet each time it was quelled. It has truly been a day of unexpected twists and turns. Everyone knew that everything had been set in motion by the madman. When the Grand Master Zishan clashed with Great Sage Zhou, why did I feel he wasn't at a disadvantage? Not just that, Great Sage Zhou couldn't even shake him. Many recalled that scene, their expressions grave. Great Sage Zhou had explicitly stated that he had recently achieved another breakthrough, yet he still couldn't suppress Zheng Guang, who was only in his 20s. How terrifying was that? That royal highness from the demon court once asked Zheng Guang if he had also achieved a breakthrough, and he didn't deny it. Many immediately speculated that Zheng Guang's recent seclusion must have been for the purpose of breaking through to a new realm. Stepping into a realm beyond the reach of ordinary mortals, shouldn't the path only grow more difficult? Yet his pace hasn't slowed in the slightest. Is he leaving any room for the rest of us to survive? The faces of those who had previously lost to Zheng Guang gradually lit up. I once crossed swords with a great sage. Even the Grand Masters who had been beaten half to death, their bones shattered and tendons torn, felt their old resentment vanish without a trace. Who among you has ever experienced such a thing? I fought a great sage in a life and death struggle. Someone couldn't help but deflate him, retorting, to be precise, you were nearly beaten to death. Regardless, I have exchanged Tao with a great sage. Once a person's mindset shifted, past defeats and gloom could instantly transform into glory, becoming a topic worthy of boasting. Back then, I fought a bloody battle with the great sage. I still keep the blood-stained battle robes, they're quite a meaningful memento. The appearance of a hidden disciple, one who had likely embarked on the path of a Tao venerable, also drew intense attention and heated discussion. Such legendary existences did not appear in every era. To have two Tao venerables emerge at once is truly beyond all expectations. The hidden disciple lineage has always been small in number since ancient times. This shouldn't be possible. The path of the Tao venerable is far beyond mortal imagination. Even geniuses can only gaze upon it from afar. Legend has it that the Tao venerable is so ethereal and transcendent that they may not even be a living being. Inside the furnace pavilion, Zhou Tian was arranging a sworn brotherhood between Niu Wuwei and Qin Ming. He solemnly mentioned that Meng Jiu, Tai Yi, and Mu Xinian were already sworn brothers above them in the hierarchy. Brother Niu, may I ask your age? Zhou Tian asked, intending to determine his rank. The green ox replied with a solemn expression, one does not ask an ox his age. It is a secret. Qin Ming laughed. Then you can go after me. You'll be sixth brother. Niu Wuwei shook his head. In the Tushita Palace's jurisdiction, who doesn't know you're only in your early 20s? I must be older than you. I'll be fifth brother. Then, he asked, isn't this a sworn brotherhood among the great sages of our demon race? Why is there a human here? Zhou Tian replied with a smile, the upright ape demon is also a branch of our demon race, and a truly remarkable golden royal clan at that. Hearing this, Li Qingyu wrinkled her nose. She was also from the golden royal clan, and he was calling her an upright ape demon. Niu Wuwei muttered to himself, not bad. Fifth brother. Invincible, Wu Di. I like this ranking. Qin Ming was impressed. The ox's face remained utterly solemn as he spoke. Li Qingyu was speechless. The ox's large green face always looked so stiff and old-fashioned. Qin Ming set down his wine cup. Brother Ox, you are quite confident. The green ox looked at him. You don't understand. On the path of the Tao Venerable, one must defeat all enemies in the world. This ox appeared stodgy and old-fashioned, but its temperament was actually free-spirited and uninhibited, and even a bit arrogant. To think it would say such words in front of two great sages. Moreover, judging by its expression, it was clearly dead serious, feeling that this was exactly how things should be. It was simply meant to subdue all opponents in the world. There were no mortals outside the furnace pavilion. Everyone there possessed a keen spiritual sense, and upon hearing this exchange, they all suddenly became energized. As expected of a being with the potential of a Tao Venerable, possessing the grand ambition to look down upon the entire world. Niu Wuwei's spirit is as vast as the mountains and rivers. He truly deserves to be considered a pillar of our Tushita Palace's jurisdiction. No matter how stunning and outstanding Zheng Guang and Zhou Tian were, they were ultimately just outsiders. They were far less likely to resonate with people than a local hidden disciple. Niu Wuwei spoke, fourth brother, it's not that I'm being disrespectful. The path I'm taking is quite special, so I'd like to ask for your cooperation in a sparring match. Then, it turned its ox head to look at Qin Ming and said in a casual tone, sixth brother, as your elder brother, I'll use you to sharpen my immortal ox hooves. You don't have any objections, right? Zhou Tian and Qin Ming exchanged glances, both wanting to beat the ox. This green ox, who had just sworn brotherhood with them, hid a restless demon heart beneath its expressionless hide. Its temperament was arrogant and untamable. Before the people inside the furnace pavilion could even react, the crowd outside had already exploded. The crowd had gathered to witness a great sage personally intervene. Instead, the two sides were revealed as sworn brothers, ending the conflict with a celebratory drink. Only Zheng Gui was left to suffer the consequences. Now, the hidden disciple under the Tushita Palace was about to make his move, facing two future great sages simultaneously. A surge of excitement swept through the onlookers. This is our own future, Tao Venerable, about to suppress the outsiders. As someone voiced this, many nodded in agreement, their sense of investment intensifying. Even the All Saints felt their blood stir, eagerly anticipating the battle. It had been a long time since they had experienced such a thrill. In an instant, the news ignited the area. In fact, the word had already spread far and wide, taking flight on wings to alert all factions. Many who had initially remained hidden now rushed to the scene. A being with the potential to become a Tao Venerable challenging a future great sage, who could resist such a spectacle? Master, if you don't emerge from seclusion soon, you'll miss a showdown between young prodigies the likes of which is seen only once in a century. Ninth uncle, come quickly. The hidden disciple has emerged, seeking to subdue 2 future great sages single-handedly. Countless people were sending messages via conchs. The news tore through Xuandu City, Dao City, and the Dakai Heaven Dojo like a violent hurricane. Niu Wuwei, Li Yud, Qin Ming, and Zhou Tian left the furnace pavilion without stopping, heading straight out of the city. They only halted when they reached the vicinity of the barren mountain range. Be careful, Li Qingyu cautioned. Qin Ming nodded, reassuring her. Even he took the matter of beings with the potential to become Dao Venerables seriously. The area instantly became a whirlwind of activity as everyone outside the furnace pavilion followed them. The saints crowded the front, securing the best vantage points to watch the fight. As the two spoke, Niu Wuwei entered the arena. He raised a front hoof and signaled to Zhou Tian that he was ready to begin. Fifth brother, are you really this impatient? Zhou Tian asked. If this had happened before their sworn brotherhood, he wouldn't have minded a friendly spar or a fierce battle. But now, having just sworn the oath, fifth brother was challenging him immediately. It felt like a slight, and a spark of anger flared in Zhou Tian's heart. Niu Wuwei flashed a rare, honest smile. Fourth brother, I've always been straightforward. Don't hold it against me. Come on, after I fight you, I still have to battle sixth brother. Zhou Tian stopped holding back. Stop smiling, you bastard. Just keep that cow face of yours stone-faced, it's damn ugly. Hearing this, Niu Wuwei didn't say another word. He dug his 4 hooves into the ground and charged at Zhou Tian. In an instant, the earth shook, and the sky trembled, as if the mountains themselves were about to leap from the ground. It had not yet unleashed the heaven and earth manifestation, yet its mere presence and the colossal commotion it caused were already no less formidable. The very earth seemed on the verge of splitting open, as black fissures several feet wide spider webbed across the ground, racing outward. Niu Wuwei charged like thunder falling from the 9 heavens. By the end, its hooves barely touched the earth, yet it still crushed the entire mountain range beneath its stride. A stone cliff caught in the wake collapsed, sending a billowing cloud of dust into the air. Zhou Tian's expression was grim. He possessed the world's strongest defense and was renowned for his strength, yet now his heart hammered against his ribs. He teleported repeatedly, shifting his position, but fifth brother Niu Wuwei adjusted in perfect sync, moving like a streak of light, its massive horns forever locked on him. Zhou Tian smiled. As a great sage, others had always avoided his edge. How could he be the one to retreat? With a roar, silver Dao patterns spread across his body. He stood his ground, ready to face the hidden disciple of Tushita Palace, the green ox, head on. A thunderous bellow erupted as azure chi surged, tearing through the night sky. Niu Wuwei's feral rage was fully unleashed, its form swelling in size, threatening to trample the mountains and rivers. Zhou Tian's body also grew, transforming into a giant that stood tall beneath the heavens. Boom. The two mighty beings collided, unleashing a force that tore through the landscape like a tidal wave. Endless forests were obliterated, great rivers were instantly dried up, and mountain walls crumbled. Bang. Zhou Tian was sent flying by the green ox's charge, smashing through a towering mountain. Simultaneously, Niu Wuwei's colossal body tore through another mountain, shattering it into a cloud of dust and debris. Zhou Tian soared back into the sky, his expression grim and murderous. His form began to shift, the faint outline of a giant turtle emerging, the legendary ending law turtle, a mutated creature so rare it hadn't been seen for countless ages. Now, he was prepared to unleash his ultimate form to face the hidden disciple of Tushita Palace. Fourth brother, let me handle this, Qin Ming said, stepping forward to stop him. Zhou Tian shook his head, determined to fight the decisive battle himself. Qin Ming sent a secret telepathic transmission. If you transform into your true form and unleash your extreme Dao domain, it will look like you're going all out in a blood battle. Let me give it a try instead. He had a good impression of Zhou Tian and had always planned to use the names of the 4 great sages to cause trouble, so he naturally wanted to maintain a good relationship with them. Zhou Tian frowned, conceding the point. If he were to transform into his true form on the spot, it would indeed look like a desperate, all-or-nothing gamble. Sixth brother, I'll leave this to you, he said, stepping back. Qin Ming nodded with a smile and strode toward the green ox. Just then, Li Yud unexpectedly joined the fray. He nodded to Zhou Tian and challenged him. I will face you. Zhou Tian stared at him. And what is your identity? I am also a hidden disciple, Li Yud replied. Good. Zhou Tian charged straight at him. On the other side, Qin Ming faced off against Niu Wuwei. The green ox chuckled. Sixth brother, come, help your fifth brother temper my undying hoof. It charged at high speed, truly trampling mountains and rivers. Its aura was so overwhelming that Qin Ming had never seen its like in any other member of the demon race. The earth shattered, and cliffs crumbled. The giant green ox's 4 hooves glowed, imprinting divine patterns upon the void. Behind it, glowing hoofprints coalesced without dispersing. Clang. A deafening crash echoed between heaven and earth. Qinming's Qingtian force could shake the heavens. He unleashed his full power, striking the massive ox horn with a single palm. The green ox swayed slightly, its hooves crushing the ground as it shook its head vigorously. Qinming's body shuddered from the impact, but he remained rooted to the spot, refusing to be thrown back. He actually dares to fight it head-on. Many gasped in shock. Who was stronger, the hidden disciple or the madman? The mist was about to clear. Everyone held their breath, their eyes glued to the epic battle. Qinming shook his hand, a brilliant smile spreading across his face as he charged toward the green ox. Niu Wuwei's entire body glowed, and its coarse horns erupted with a dazzling radiance, thrusting forward once more. Clang! A violent shockwave rippled through the air. Instead of dodging, Qinming met the attack head-on with another powerful slap. The green ox's pupils constricted, its massive body trembling from the blow. It knew it had encountered a peerless young expert. This opponent was no ordinary foe. Its horns blazed like a heavenly blade, firing a beam of light that sliced through the air toward its rival. Qinming dodged the blast. Mysterious patterns surfaced on his right hand as the adhesion force took hold, locking onto the ox's horns across the void. Like a divine demon crossing the night mist sea, he teleported instantly. In a flash, he leapt onto the ox's back. Come, he challenged, let's see if you, the future Tao Venerable, can subdue me, or if I, the future Great Sage, will be the one to suppress you. Blank. End of chapter. Subscribe to the MTL World at Malworld 1 YouTube channel.